Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Campbell City Council for Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. And I'd like to invite Sergeant Najib McGee to please come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sergeant McGee, if you'd wait there just a moment, one of the things I need to do is ask for roll call first.
Perfect. Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Hines.
Present.
Councilmember Vibey.
Present.
Councilmember Scuzola.
Here.
Mayor Furtado.
Here. So now we're in business.
Thank you, sir.
And if you'd wait just a moment, I'd like to just make some comments from the podium here. I've asked Sergeant McGee to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. He has been a longtime caregiver for our very first working dog, Lucas, canine Lucas. We're honoring the life and service of canine Lucas tonight. Canine Lucas was our very first dog, and he was donated by the Police Foundation in 2019. And a little bit later that year, he was put into service as our first full-time working dog. And if you've ever seen or knew Lucas, he was an extremely friendly dog. Anyone could pet him. He was the most friendly dog you could find. But when it was time to work and he was given the proper commands, he knew what to do and went right to work. And worked for us until 2023. He retired in that year. And sadly, on March 15th of this year, 2026, Lucas passed from us. During his retirement, he became a full-time member of Sergeant Lucas' family. And Sergeant Lucas, by the way, is here this evening with his wife, Mina. Good evening and welcome. So we are honoring the legacy of canine Lucas, and we do now have two working dogs, canine Koa and canine Rowan, that have taken Lucas' place. I might also mention that it was very recent, in fact it was just March 13th, that the nation actually recognized National Canine Veterans Day to honor all service dogs. And many of you may or may not be aware of the fact that service dogs have always been a part of the military for many, many years. So much so that a formal program was begun in 1942. But prior to that, during World War I, service animals were used. It's estimated that for all of the combined Allied forces of World War I, there were more than 20,000 working service dogs. And then the program continued. There have been service dogs in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the global war on terror, several thousand dogs. So dogs are recognized everywhere, and we think the canines that we have here in Campbell are very special. So if you take a moment, I'm going to come down with a recognition.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you and acknowledge the work that you do for us as a leader in the police department and as a police officer for many years. Your colleagues are here as well. Thank you all very much. And if you'd like to say some words, we welcome them.
I just want to thank the city, the department, and my admin and my coach for giving me the opportunity to be such a good dog. It's a great experience regardless of how it ends, but I just want to say thank you.
I would invite my colleagues on the council or any member of the public that would like to speak as well under this item.
If I may, as a dog lover myself, it is a incredible advantage to be able to have a dog, be able to experience a dog, and the demise always happens, and it's rough and tough. But there's always another dog to come along. And that's why I can't be on the SVSBA board, because I'd come home with 10 dogs. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and your family, and for making Lucas a part of your family. His coming on to the police force was just a little bit before my time on council, but definitely by the time that I was engaged in coming, and I remember the impact that had for Campbell and the police department to be such a trailblazer in that area with strong community support. I mean, you just represented the best of our community coming together to support something, and Lucas really paved the way for all the other successful police dogs we've had in that program. So my heart's heavy to hear that. I know it must be for you to have had him as a part of your family, but I think we truly say it. The program, Lucas, just your leadership in this program represented the best for our community, and thank you. And I know his memory and service will live on through the other police dogs that we have in this program. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's pretty undebatable that Lucas was most people's favorite officer, and you are the close second, perhaps. And I want to thank you both for your service and the many memories that Lucas gave us.
I want to thank you, Najib, for being our first dog handler and taking the lead and really setting the example for the dogs that are to follow. Whoops, let me make sure my speaker's off. And I know that in addition to your regular police work, it's an added responsibility to handle a dog, and it folds into your family life. But I just want to say it's really with a lot of sadness that you had to put him down. It's always difficult, no matter what pet it is. But I think that we can all say that you provided him the best care and the best love and attention while he was on this earth. So thank you very much.
Thanks again, Sergeant McGee. We now move on to special presentations and proclamations. And actually, we have 3 proclamations tonight, and I will handle each one individually. I'd like to invite representatives of the Red Cross to the podium. If you'd come forward, please. Jonas Mari, as well as Mark Ebner. Hi, if you'll just wait there for a moment, I'm going to sit at the podium here and read my remarks. So it is my pleasure to proclaim the month of March as Red Cross Month. The American Red Cross is an organization which I'm sure everyone recognizes. It's a time during this period of the year that we recognize the humanitarian organization that is well known to the American people, and it has had an outstanding record of easing persons' sufferings during life's emergencies. The volunteers represent the very best of our nation and the very best of the nation's spirit of compassion, service, and resilience. The city of Campbell does recognize all Red Cross volunteers as represented here tonight, and especially locally our Silicon Valley chapter of the American Red Cross, who've worked very hard locally for us for many years. As you know, California suffers from what are nominally called fires, floods, and faults. So we have fires, we have floods, we have earthquakes, and the Red Cross is always there. And it's even there, of course, for very small local types of emergencies, small fires or apartment complexes or things like that, where a number of people are displaced locally. So therefore, I, as mayor of the city of Campbell, on behalf of the council and the city itself, do hereby proclaim the month of March as American Red Cross Month. And I have a copy of the resolution for you. please tell your colleagues, thank you very much and congratulations. Thank you for the work that you do. We appreciate it. And if you'd like to make some comments, we'd be pleased to have you do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So my name is Jonas Marie. I sit on the American Red Cross Board for the Silicon Valley chapter. So it's an honor on behalf of the organization to accept this proclamation from the city of Campbell. It's almost 80 years that this tradition has been honored for our volunteers to support our causes. About 90% of our work comes from volunteers alone, and the community of Campbell is a huge part of it, something that I recognize in my own work as a board member at the Red Cross. We work for from disaster relief, supporting families in the military, collecting life-saving blood. You guys are a huge part of our community. A couple of stats I want to just shoot out from Santa Clara County alone. We've responded to over 100 disasters just this year alone, provided about 1,700 services to military families, and collected nearly 17,000 blood donations, all thanks to our 2,100 local volunteers and donors. So that speaks to this community, how much you guys have helped us. If you want to continue to volunteer, we invite you to join us. Just go to redcross.org/volunteer today. And thank you so much, Mayor Furtado, and the City of Campbell and your staff for this partnership. Appreciate you guys.
I'd like to invite my colleagues to make some comments as well. Started this in.
I want to thank you for being here and for giving us this opportunity to recognize you. I don't know why my speaker keeps making noise. It is.
I think it might be over here.
Oh, okay. I apologize, everybody. And I just want to thank you for to the Red Cross for the service that you provide, not only to our residents, but globally across the United States. And you're always there to help people in dire emergencies and when the need is so apparent. So thank you very much for the service you provide to our community.
And I just would say that, you know, I thank you and the Red Cross and all of our volunteers, and especially the people of Campbell who literally give their blood to the community.
Yeah, the Red Cross obviously has an international, world-renowned perspective, and excellent to be able to see it. And it's just so fantastic to have it so close in Silicon Valley. I've seen it in operation now a couple of times in just my short time being on the council here. So just congratulations for being able to be so local in your endeavors. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say at a time when things can seem so uncertain with, you know, who knows what natural disaster is going to come down, things seem unpredictable. It gives our community a real feeling of preparedness to have that local support and participation. And I also just want to say, having served on local boards, thank you for your service and your colleagues on the board for representing our community and making sure that we're at the table for those decisions to represent the community. Thank you.
Which is a big month, so I also would like to claim the month of March as Disability Awareness Inclusion Month. And I'd like to invite Kurt Kang to the board. Kurt, welcome. If you'll just take a moment, I'm going to remain here at the podium again for a short time, and I'll come down there. Whereas the city of Campbell strives to be a community where every individual, regardless of ability, is treated with dignity, respect, and has the opportunity for equitable access to all community programs and services. And whereas the Disability Awareness Council, which was founded by Kirk Kang and Ethan Kang, have worked with local elementary schools to spread awareness of inclusion, providing support for students of all abilities, and promoting a number of programs, both athletic programs and arts programs, through your efforts. And whereas your work has involved dismantling the barriers and addressing the challenges faced by people with physical challenges, we in the city of Campbell and I as mayor of the city, on behalf of my colleagues here in the city council, would like to proclaim the month of March as Disability Awareness Inclusion Month. And thank you very much for this very worthwhile project. So I have a proclamation for you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Please feel free to say, give some remarks. Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor Furtado and council members. It is wonderful to see you all again since I was here a few weeks ago for the Synopsis Science Fair Awards ceremony. And my name is Kurt King. I'm a ninth grader at Westmont High School. I founded the Disability Awareness Council, and I'm also part of the Campbell Youth Commission. I'm extremely grateful to the mayor and council members for helping this opportunity to happen. And this mission is deeply personal to me because my sister has Down syndrome and just a disability. And I see the firsthand impact of this inclusion in schools and communities. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity. And once again, thank you, all of you guys, for your leadership and making this possible. Thank you.
Once again, I'll ask my colleague.
Sure. I just want to start by thanking you for your leadership, not just with this project, but as you heard, you've been here a number of times, including as part of our youth commission, and just really appreciate having you as a member of the community. I see a vision of a world that we can all move towards, where everyone can participate equally, and that's really what you're helping to create for the next generation. So I just want to say, keep at it, keep participating, being back here, however way we can be a part of those efforts. But thank you really for your work.
Yeah, outstanding work and continuing with this. So that's just fantastic. Having a niece with Down syndrome, I have seen that experience firsthand, and it's just a real tribute to you and for having a disability month, disability awareness month is fantastic. It was something that we have to do on a 12-month a year basis as well. So thank you. Great work.
Yeah, this is particularly special to me. I really think that everybody needs to be helped in our society, and I know that Campbell is one of those places that we do our very best. But it's hard to imagine only about 50 years ago, we were living in radically different times where if you were disabled, the burden was mostly placed on the family. And now we have so many assistance programs. We have so many great individuals like yourself that are out there bringing awareness and doing things about it. In fact, one of my favorite moments ever on the steps of Congress was when a large group of disabled folks, they got out of their wheelchairs or took down their crutches and they crawled up the steps of Congress to make a point because nothing was getting done. And so that shamed them so much that steps started being taken. And now we are here today, and I'm glad that the fight continues with people like you. Thank you so much.
And I want to thank you for your vision and identifying a need in the community and taking steps to address it and creating a council that raises awareness. And I encourage you to keep up the great work and maybe hopefully spread it to other high schools in the Campbell Union High School District.
And I would like to now invite members, Will Fuentes, our Director of Finance, and members of the finance team to please come forward to the podium. Good evening, Will, and members of the finance team. It's likewise my pleasure to proclaim this week of March 23rd through March 27th as Government Finance Professionals Week here in the city of Campbell. As the audience can tell, and the viewers who may be tuning in here through our television and audiovisual networks, we have a very robust finance team. Needless to say, the finance team is responsible for so much, making us work effectively and efficiently. They manage the city's budgets. They make sure that the bills are paid from the appropriate accounts. They keep an eye on those accounts and keep the city manager and the council, as well as the department heads, aware of where they stand for each year's budget. Probably the most important thing that you do for everyone else here is prepare the weekly or semi-weekly paychecks and making sure that the paychecks get delivered appropriately, the appropriate deductions are made for taxes, retirement, allotments, and things of that nature. And there are a number of U.S. government requirements for rules and regulations and reports, and they put out the annual Comprehensive Finance Review Report, which is just coming now, and have consistently been recognized with awards of excellence. So, Will, I wanted to thank you and your team very much. We certainly appreciate it. Oftentimes, you probably only are contacted by any of us here if something's wrong, right? We just know and expect that things will always go well, and any complaints that anyone has, I'm sure, are few and far between. So I do have a proclamation as well. Yeah, thanks so much. Well, I want to stand in front of you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. All of you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Please feel free to.
Oh, yeah, let's go through this quickly. So I did also just had to I did also just want I think the council as well. It's a great a week and a way our across the country, across the state, and just it's certainly a great it's a great honor to our great and our great and hard team. We are you know, it's the first time that there's been a week for our whole department. There are certainly weeks for other deserving departments, and also for payroll. But this is the first time it's been 8 weeks for our whole team, and again, two things like the audit and the budget, certainly payroll. We'll cut the checks for projects as well, and you know, the hard it really helps public agencies all across the country and the state, and also in Campbell, to achieve their goals and objectives. So I just want to again thank the council and also our whole team who's up here today. Without their great work and teamwork, we certainly couldn't accomplish all that they do. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
I'd like to also invite Alex to make some remarks.
So for me, this is one of the highlights of the year when we get to, don't go away, get to recognize employee groups and finances, no exception. And as Van said, that oftentimes you probably don't hear from us unless we have a question. And I've had one or two of those over my service on the council, but I do want to thank you each individually for the contributions you make. It's oftentimes behind the scenes, getting business licenses issued, answering phones, processing payroll, making sure our bills are paid, our financial reporting, and having reports come to the council. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, and I want to thank all of you individually for your work and for your contribution to the city. It's a great city to work for and to be a part of.
And I would just say thank you as always for keeping the lights on. And whenever I get my packet and I'm looking at the financial data, I'm like, oh my dear God, I'm so glad we have a good staff that can actually go through this and make sure everything is good and proper. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's a fantastic team. Thank you for the tour that I had just a little while ago. And for my detailed questions, you always, I have detailed questions and I can actually find the answers in the material that you provide. So really tribute to what you present. As a small business owner, I know that making payroll is absolutely the only thing that you really need to be able to make sure happens. So just a great job on being able to do that. And it's, you're a fantastic team with the accolades that you get recognized from as well. So great work.
Yeah, I'm not sure that many members of the public know this, but our finance team regularly wins awards from, I think it's GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, for literally decades now, in a row because of the fine work of our finance team. And I know, having served on the Finance and Audit Committee for a number of years, we regularly get back the cleanest audits that we can. So it's really a testament to your work, and beyond just the impact on our employees and staff here. I think the fact that our ability to go out and be able to do things like Measure O, Measure K is entirely on the basis that people trust that if they put their money in the city of Campbell as residents, make an investment for the future, that it will be in good hands, and that those are your hands because of your work. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We now move on. We have no communications and petitions. We now move to oral requests. This is the time on this evening's agenda for any member of the public to address the council on any item not on tonight's agenda. And I do have two cards. If you'd like to speak under oral requests, you are requested but not required to fill out a speaker card and give it to the city clerk so that we know you may wish to speak. So first, I'll ask Roy DiVittorio to make some remarks. Each speaker has 2 minutes.
They might have something to help if I forgot. First question, have any of you on the council, have you heard of the development that's going on West Parr and Walnut? There's 2 lots, those 9 homes on each, so 18 homes on 2 lots. You guys all aware of that?
We are generally aware of it, and we are going to receive an additional report having heard about some of the issues prior to this meeting, so our planning department, perhaps not tonight, but we'll be reaching out both to you as well as giving us a thorough report.
Okay,
I just drove by it this morning as well, on the way here. as well.
right. Okay, and our big concern is that, I know it's the state, it's a starter home project, 1123, that you could put 9 homes on a 20,000 square foot lot, which, it's supposed to be a vacant lot. They're not vacant lots, and the city has maneuvered some rules and, to make it fit their requirements to allow it. And there's a lot of legal things that aren't what the state is saying. And I just can't believe the council, or maybe hasn't got to you guys, hasn't said anything about putting 18 homes on less than an acre at the corner. The parking, every house is gonna have an average of 2 cars, and these are bigger lots. And if that goes through, the city seemed pretty sneaky about it, because, when I built my house, I had to notify everybody, 300 feet radius. And then we had planning department meetings, planning commission meetings, city council, a lot. And I think a lot of our neighbors in the several blocks there are shocked that this is going in, and none of them have been notified. And we're like, we don't see it, because there is no, where does it stop? I can look in the next 3-4 blocks and find 20 different lots that could be 9 homes, and we're just, we're concerned about that, and because I know you guys wouldn't want that popping up next to you. And the way the city has worked it, and a lot of people aren't aware of it and stuff. I know. So just want to make sure you guys were aware of it and stuff, and we'll look forward to hearing from the planning department as to what they're doing and stuff, because.
Thank you, Roy. I will say one thing here is that a number of these rules and regulations are established by the state of California, and they do not give cities jurisdiction. But I still, nevertheless, we refer the matter to the planning department. When this item includes, I'll ask planning in case they want to make any remarks tonight for the city manager, or we will provide obviously a more thorough report. Since this item is not agendized, it's not a matter that we can discuss.
Right, no, I understand.
Brief comments on the part.
Right. Yeah, I just want to give an example. The state had, okay,
I'm sorry.
so we have examples of the city going around the state a bit, so, we know, but we'll look forward to hearing from the planning department and stuff. Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, guys. I appreciate it. All right, thanks.
I'd also like to invite Mitch Sturmer.
I also want to talk about the development of West Parr and Walnut Drive. My goal is not to oppose the development of housing, but to making sure that the policy of SB 1123 are implemented in the way it lines with the original purpose that does not unintentionally reduce existing housing or destabilize neighborhoods. While I understand SB 1123 is designed to support and increase housing supplies for more efficient land use, the situation arising of concern, it appears that the law may be enabling removing existing housing stock rather than encouraging the redevelopment of underutilized or vacant lots. It's my understanding that I could sell my house to a developer and he could try to do an SB 1123, but the property must be vacant or must come underneath the remainder parcel rule, which says you can build around the houses. Both these properties are housed or has housing. A vacant lot is specified as a lot that has a single family, it's a lot in a single family housing development. The lot is considered vacant if no permanent structure or the existing structure is abandoned or uninhabited. That's in the law. Right now, there's both these houses there. One person is still living in it. Has been sold. The other person has passed away and the estate has it. It's a fine, perfect house in the neighborhood. If they don't allow SB 1123, I have no problem with traditional development. Have them come through the city don't streamline this. Let's have the environmental impact hearings. Let's follow the rules of the city. They could use SB9, which has another way to break up parcels and do other things. But I don't think this property qualifies under 1123. Because I talked to the building department. They told me that the city council had given permission to do this. The city council had said they can tear the houses down and do it. I'd like the city council to today say, yes, we understand that this is against the law, and we did vote on it and approve it, if that's the case. So this is why we're here. I'm, like I said, not against the development. Let's do it in the proper way. Let's follow the. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other cards. Does anyone wish to speak under oral requests? I'll just ask anyone on the staff, if you want to make a brief comment. I know it's not agendized, we won't be able to discuss it further, but if you have a brief comment, or especially how you may provide a more, say, extensive remark at a future time.
Mayor Furtado, honorable council members, Rob Eastwood, Community Development Director. I have received a substantial number of comments from our staff on the two housing projects, and the city has received a number of starter home housing projects. We do intend to do more outreach to the community through email lists and social media, just on what the law is, what it allows, and the facts and the rules around it. We will have more information to council soon on any discretion the council may have in the upcoming future on parts of the law, if it may come back to you. But in the near term, over the next week or two, we intend to do outreach. Enhance our web. We do have web pages on Starter Home, but at least get out to the community the facts on what the state law is and what types of projects can be allowed.
I appreciate that.
If I may just add, I will be preparing a memorandum to the council regarding the legal issue concerning vacancy that was raised tonight.
Thank you. And I simply request that the gentleman that spoke tonight, a more specific reply be made to them as well, since they took the trouble to come here and speak to us. So this week's announcements are as follows. On Thursday, March 26th, just a couple of days from now, from 5 to 7 p.m., you're invited to join the Campbell Museum for a volunteer recruitment mixer to meet the staff and volunteers and explore opportunities from serving as a docent to a foundation board member within the Campbell Museum Foundation. They will provide light refreshments, and you can discover how you can work in preserving our Campbell's history and with the Museum Foundation. Secondly, members of the city, of course, are invited to join the fun for the annual Bunnies and Bonnets Parade. That will be held on Saturday, April 4th at 12 noon in downtown Campbell. The Downtown Campbell Business Association sponsors this annual Easter parade tradition that features marching bands, dancers, community groups, local organizations, and others. So it's a very nice event. In the early morning, there's the annual egg extravaganza for the children over at the community center, sponsored by the Kiwanis Club. Next, community-minded residents are invited to apply for openings on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee as well as the Planning Commission. So we have vacancies on either of the two committees or commission. These groups help guide the city growth, as you might imagine, including transportation, long-term planning. They review projects, provide advice to the council, and work to support safer and more connected neighborhoods. So individuals who might be interested in applying for one of these positions are encouraged to contact the clerk's office. You can do so at clerk's office at campbellca.gov, or simply call the clerk's office for more information and an application. Next, the annual Mother's Day Tea and Tour of the Ainsley House will take place on May 1st and 2nd and 3rd from noon until 2 p.m. This is a very nice tradition and a way to celebrate mothers, enjoy time with friends, or simply enjoy afternoon tea and treats and elegant attire. So tickets are available at campbellmuseums.com. Also would like to mention that on Saturday, May 9th, this is an announcement we've all been waiting for, the library is going to open. Saturday, May 9th at 10 a.m., there'll be an opening ceremony for the library at last. This ceremony is sponsored by the Santa Clara County Library District. Members of the city council and others from the city and staff will be there. I'll have the opportunity to speak on behalf of the city, and we'll have a grand opening of the facility. I'm sure that you've perhaps, if you've walked by there or driven by there, you've seen through the windows. It's a much nicer facility than it was before, a lot more space, and we first and foremost thank the voters of the city of Campbell for sponsoring or approving Measure O, which actually was a $50 million bond fund, $25 million for the library, $25 million for the new police building, which is also nearing completion, and hopefully we're looking forward to its opening either in later May or the very first part of June. So we thank the voters very much. I will say that both the library as well as our police department sought and received additional grant monies to pay for additional expenses at their two respective buildings. So those are all of the announcements here. So now we move to the consent calendar. These are items 7.1 to 7.6 that the council will take as a single item of business unless a member of the public or a member of the staff or a member of the city council would like us to pull an item for individual or further discussion. And I do have one request to pull item 7.6. So would anyone else like to pull another item from the consent calendar? If not, I would appreciate a motion to approve items 7.1 through 7.5.
I'll submit a motion to approve items 7.1 to 7.5 of the consent calendar.
I'll second. Go ahead, Elliot.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hines, second by Councilmember Scazola. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola. Mayor Furtado.
Aye. We now move to item 7.6. Item 7.6 is the second reading of an adoption of an ordinance regarding beekeeping. And I'd like to ask Steve Saunders to please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Steve Saunders, Campbell resident. Earlier this month, when you took the first reading of this ordinance, I spoke in opposition to it based on personal safety concerns. And it was recommended that I contact the county agricultural department, which I did, and they quickly got back to me with the response: registered beehive locations are kept confidential per California Food Agricultural Code, Division 13, Chapter 1, Article 4, 29,041. And if you go there, has a neat little bit of thing saying, notwithstanding the California Public Records Act, which I didn't try to figure out, of the title of government code, any information provided according to this article shall be held confidential and shall not be disclosed to any person or governmental agency other than the department or the county Department of Agriculture. In other words, you guys are out of it. You vote for this, you don't have any more say. And I'm really disappointed that there isn't some notion of letting the neighbors know that something that could be dangerous to them is going to be moved in. I'm not saying you can have a veto or anything like that, but not having any notification seems like a bad idea. I hope that the people that put in beehives talk to their neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a further comment, Bill, by chance on this at all?
No, only that if the records are confidential, as they seem to be, the council, anyone who wants to put in a beehive in the city of Campbell still does need to comply with the ordinance that the council is enacting tonight.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the council on item 7.6?
I would proceed. We had a very large community, the Beekeepers Guild, and many folks, regular folks that do this, and bees are very good and healthy for our sustainability and in the environment. So I'm all for it. I've talked to a lot of people that want this to go forward, and the regulations that were in existence, if we don't pass this, they're outdated. They're truly outdated. It's from the scare of the killer bees, Africanized bees, that never came to be, and that's why these regulations were or ordinances were put in the first place. But they're very outdated. So the bees are going to be here no matter what. I appreciate that. I understand, of course, there are people with major allergies, but I trust in the neighborliness of our community that if our neighbors are intending on doing some beekeeping, that they would talk to their neighbors. I hope for that. But yes, I think we should proceed.
And I'll second, but I'd also like to make some comments. Steve, absolutely understand the concern, and it's not just you. It's I think about this as representing anyone as I people in my family who are allergic, and I think would share the concerns. I think what we try to do over this time and staff try to do was adopt a science-based approach that took into account best practices for dispersal, fences, spacing, and so I understand it may not be perfect in terms of some of the concerns that may be brought up, but I think the attempt was truly there from staff to account for public safety. So understanding that, I would move the item, but I think what this process has shown me is the importance of education, public outreach, and so I hope it continues in that spirit and trust that it would. And I think the relationships we've established with groups like the Bee Guild would help support those efforts, best practices around safety. But truly do appreciate comments and understand the concerns.
Thank you. I assume the motion from Councilmember Scazola, second from Councilmember Lopez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Mayor Furtado.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes the consent calendar. We now move to item number 8 on tonight's agenda for public hearings and the introduction of ordinances. We actually have 2 items. They are both related. Item 8.1 and 8.2. Both of these items are a discussion, and they both discuss or deal with Senate Bill 79, which has been enacted. Based on the information to be discussed tonight and the inclusion of the items here, 3 members of the City Council have a conflict of interest in terms of their residence being located within the sphere of influence. And therefore, 3 of us, including myself, Councilmember Hines, and Councilmember Lopez, must recuse ourselves from this discussion. And each of us will state the reason why. However, there is a requirement that a minimum number of council members participate in a given discussion. Consequently, we will invoke a rarely used state rule, but nevertheless a provision in state law that governs this situation called the rule of necessity, which will require us to, after we disclose our reasons why we have to recuse ourselves, which will require the 3 of us to, if you will, draw straws. And for item 8.1, it will involve the selection of 1 council member. For item 8.2, it will involve the selection of 2 council members. So the single council member for 8.1 and the 2 council members for 8.2, drawing the longest straw, are allowed to remain and participate in the discussion per state law. And for just the sake of ease, although we will consider each item separately for the purpose of drawing straws and determining who may participate or not, we'll do that sequentially just right up front. And if this is satisfactory with the city attorney, I will proceed.
Very well done.
Thank you. So I will, first of all, I do need to ask the three of us to declare the situation that will require us to recuse ourselves from the discussion.
Thank you. My understanding conversation with the city attorney is I believe it's a half mile from, is that correct?
Actually, your situation's a little
Yeah,
different.
I know. I'll get into the renter situation, but the distance, what was?
Well, the distance of, that SB 79 affects is a half mile from a major transit stop.
Okay, thank you. And I do just want to note the unique confluence of factors of Campbell both being a small land area and being entirely bisected by transit. My situation, as the city attorney noted, is a little bit different from my colleagues. I'm a renter, and in conversations, it seems that in my layman's terms that it was a little bit more of a gray area in terms of whether this particular situation, which has to be judged on a case-by-case basis, applies to renters. And so while I believe in the importance of representation, I'm listening to the recommendation of our city attorney and really acting out of an abundance of caution to protect the city in this case. And so joining in with the other two and recusing unless I'm one of the council members to draw straws. So is that accurately stated?
Well done, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Terry Hines, I'm the property owner with, our family trust is the property owner of 2276 Central Park Drive in Campbell. I am the trustee of that trust along with my wife. And that is within a half mile by the crow flies from the Winchester light rail station. Therefore, I must recuse myself.
And likewise, I own property within the half-mile radius that has been designated, and I must recuse myself from the discussion on these items.
And in addition, of course, your property is designated as a historic structure, so
That's
that
right.
adds an additional wrinkle to the analysis.
Yes, it does. Thank you. So now I will ask the city clerk to please prepare the straws for us to draw. So that's for item 8.1. And we'll do the same at this point in time for you. What's the longest stop? Two. Okay, so I'm ruled out of discussing both of these items, which creates another problem since I'm presiding at the meeting. However, that necessitates then me passing the gavel to another member of the city council, which will require election by the city council. So I nominate Ann Bybee to serve as acting chair for the purpose of the council considering 8.1 and 8.2.
Second. We need a second.
We have a motion by myself, a second by council member Scazola. Any other nominations?
Can I vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So do we need a roll call or can we do voice? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Mayor Furtado.
Aye. I will now turn the gavel over to acting presiding of the meeting for items 8.1 and 8.2, Councilmember Biden.
So I'd like to begin with reading just the title of the item. It is discussion of SB 79 and request for council feedback regarding approach to implementation in Campbell, including potential preparation of a transit-oriented development alternative plan, and in parentheses, TOD alt plan. And we'll begin with our Community Development Director, Rob Eastwood.
Acting Chair Bybee, remaining council members. So this item, just to tee it up, there are two items before you. The first item before you is a study session where we're looking for your direction and feedback on how the city approaches the implementation broadly of SB 79. And Stephen Rose, your planner, will walk you through more of the facts of the law, what it potentially impacts, and your options on implementing the law. The second item separately is an interim ordinance on what we think is a more straightforward way of a first step of implementing SB 79 of defining the geographic area. So it's clear what areas are in and out of SB 79 and excluding historic properties of SB 79. Those will be presented separately, but for council's understanding, those are one after another. With that, with the chair's allowance from the council, this is a very heavy item. It's a new state law. It's taken quite some months working diligently between our planning staff, HUD staff, other planners to digest, and our legal counsel, the key tenets of the law to get here. We were going to propose two parts to the first conversation. One is a narrative for you and any members of the public that are interested, just on the facts of the law and the options available to the city on implementing. We're thinking of pausing at that point because there's a lot to digest, see if there are comments. I want to make sure the council has a full understanding. And after that, we would continue with the options that are available for your direction on implementing them. With that, I'll hand it over to Stephen Rose.
Thank you and good evening, Acting Vice Chair Bybee and members of the council. So as just covered by Rob, we are going to provide first an overview of SB 79, where it applies in Campbell, specifically which standards apply to Campbell. We'll provide an overview of potential community impacts, as well as the potential for preparing what's called a transportation-oriented development plan. Then we're going to go into our implementation options as well as fiscal impacts. So SB 79, which is also known as the Abundant and Affordable Homes Near Transit Act, will go into effect on July 1st of this year. And what it materially does is it significantly expands housing capacity within 1/2 mile of qualifying transit-oriented development stops. It establishes, among other things, minimum building height and floor area ratio standards for the city. And the requirements based on density and these standards vary based on proximity and the type of transit stop that's involved. The two tiers which are included in the law are Tier 1 stops, which are largely heavy rail, which are assigned those more intensive development standards like a Bay Area, like BART stations, as well as Tier 2 stops like those which apply to the city of Campbell, which have a little bit of a lower bar. So to qualify for SB 79, the projects have to meet a number of criteria. The first is that it must first and foremost be a housing development project, which requires it to be at least 2/3 residential use. The project has to have also 5 or more dwelling units and must meet a minimum density of 30 units per acre, or whichever is the greater of that or the local zoning requirement. The projects must maintain a 1750 average unit size as a maximum. The projects are required to provide affordable housing, that being the greater of what's required by the law or the city's local inclusionary requirement, again, whichever is greater. And it prohibits hotels or short-term lodging to be a component of this project. And last but not least, if a project were to be proposed at 85 feet or greater in height, it would trigger prevailing wage requirements and other labor standards. So getting to the more exciting bit of this, where SB 79 applies, and actually for the matter of fact, it does apply to 25% of the city's land area, which is why we had that discussion point a minute ago, how it does affect even a number of our city council members tonight. It applies to those 4 transit stations, those being Bascom, Hamilton, Campbell, and Winchester. Interestingly, Bascom is actually outside of city limits, but does have an overlapping feature with the city within that half-mile distance. It is measured in a straight line, so as the bird flies, and it's measured from the closest pedestrian access point, which is an undefined term, to the closest edge of a parcel. It applies to all properties which are zoned commercial, residential, or mixed use, but excludes, interestingly, light industrial, research and development, public facilities, and open space zoned parcels. The city has the possibility to exclude certain qualifying sites. It's actually a separate agenda item. It's the second one on the agenda on the same topic, when they meet certain criteria. Applicable to Campbell are sites which, when they are greater than 1 mile walk distance from a pedestrian access point, and when they are a qualifying historic site. So as I mentioned earlier, the stops in Campbell are considered tier 2 stops. So they're assigned standards based on that designation, which vary based on proximity to the stop as well. Areas in red are those which are the most intensive, which are closest to the light rail stops within 200 feet, and are assigned a height of 85 feet, which generally translates to 8 stories, and a density of 140 units to the acre. Areas in blue, which I'd characterize as areas such as including our downtown, would receive a height of 65 feet or 6 stories. It's generally 2 stories higher than we currently allow, and where our downtown currently allows 45 feet to go up to 65. And where our downtown's 33 units per acre today, it would go up to 100 units to the acre. Areas in yellow, those are on the peripheral, the furthest out, those would be assigned a density of 80 units per acre. An example we have up here on screen is like this. It includes a number of single family areas, which are currently as little as less than 7.5 dwelling units per acre. The law would allow for up to 80 units per acre on those sites and heights of 55 feet or 5 stories. Just by way of comparison of this bill compared to our more recent housing element update, we're contemplating the production of 2,977 units as part of our regional housing needs allocation. We're really looking at closer to 40,000 new housing units in terms of capacity, which is possible under the law, which is really 10 times the capacity which we anticipated under our prior housing law. Just in terms of key community impacts, in addition to just increasing capacity overall, as just previously discussed, it has a particularly high impact to low density residential areas where you see that greatest difference happening. Also, because the law applies to commercial properties, you're going to see a potential conversion pressure on not just the downtown, but non-residential properties, parcels that don't presently allow for residential use at all. There's also a risk to mobile home parks, but there's been talk as of late that might be amended in the law. But as it stands today, mobile home parks are in play. So I did want to mention there are a few things that the city can consider in response to SB 79. First and foremost is we could adopt what's called a Transit-Oriented Development Alternative Plan, or TOD ALT plan. It allows the city to modify where and how SB 79 applies, materially reducing or eliminating capacity on select sites in exchange for assigning it anywhere. In short, there's no free lunch. You have to, if you remove density from one site, you need to make up for it on another property. And in the development of a TOD ALT plan, the state legislature also included key guardrails. You must maintain the overall capacity. You couldn't say just downzone everything back to the way it was. You must maintain at least 50% of the density and floor area ratio initially assigned by site. And you must maintain at least 50% of the capacity by SB 79 by zone. These are by the transit stops themselves. Just in terms of a couple of key highlights, pros and cons of developing a transit-oriented development alternative plan. It does, again, allow you to reassign development capacity. The second one on the list here we actually underlined, which is the preservation of commercial. Again, sites which don't presently allow any residential use, you could entirely exclude from consideration by doing a TOD alternative plan. You can technically designate additional sites as historic, You can establish higher minimum densities, which can prevent some unintended consequences where you might be allowing up to 80 units per acre, but then you end up seeing only townhomes being built at that lower, say 30 dwelling unit per acre standard. And it could also allow us to advance housing element planning. Eventually, we're going to need to be planning for these new housing units as part of the, say, the 7th cycle housing element. So it's just a way of getting ahead of that. In terms of cons, there are limited near-term, given the economic conditions, you've heard a number of developers come before you saying it is difficult to build today, given current economic conditions. And there are, that same near-term redevelopment likelihood is lower as a result. There are statutory constraints and outcomes, again, mentioned as guardrails a moment ago. There are also process and timeline requirements that come into play. There's also legislative uncertainty. We're not certain that the law won't be amended, say, even on July 1st when it gets effectuated. And then lastly, we have limited staff resources. There are costs if we were to procure consultant support, as well as competing work plan priorities, which we'll need to contend with. So that's the part one of our presentation. So we wanted to stop here, provide an opportunity to ask questions about the applicability of the law before we get into the actual implementation options.
Thank you, Stephen. Are there any questions of council? Councilmember Scozola?
Yeah, so I mean, to me, it's really sad that people living in mobile homes are yet again forgotten and punished by our legislators in Sacramento. So I'm wondering if there are any temporary ordinances, perhaps. Is there anything that we can do to kind of protect people in that situation, or is there nothing we can do about that?
Not outside of the adoption of a transit-oriented development plan. So the alt plan is really the solution to that. That would take a period of time to occur, which is why I do believe the state legislature is working on a patch fix to that singular issue. Maybe others as well. That would be in a near-term update. Again, there's some uncertainty with that.
Okay. Well, hopefully cross fingers that they actually amend that. Okay, great. My other question, and stop me if this is too early, I should ask this later in the presentation, but am I right to assume that the areas around the Hamilton Light Rail Station, that those might be, per se, the best locations for having such dense housing? And we have some sites there like Elephant Bar, obviously, that hasn't been there for many years, that's just sitting there.
I mean, we had gone through an exercise as part of our housing element process to identify what we, the city, consider to be the best and most ripe housing opportunity sites. So by and large, the sites which we've already designated, we consider to be the most prime for redevelopment. That said, with the kind of a unique issue which is being presented by SB 79, there's a number of sites which we had not considered previously, which are those commercial sites which we didn't have any residential component assigned to, or now open for consideration.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez?
I just texted Scott Wiener to express the importance of protecting those mobile home parks. So, we'll fully bring staff and everyone on board. So I expect us to have a seat at the table for us. Absolutely share that concern. My question, thank you for the excellent report. I know this is a ton of work by staff to prepare for this. My question is actually for Bill, just procedural, for both this item and the next one, having not been in this circumstance before. Do we need a majority of votes? I understand this is informational for this item. Just what's the procedure for this case?
Yes, all ordinances require 3 votes, so you're not acting on an ordinance now, so.
Not for this one, but I guess the next one.
Yes, the next one actually is an urgency ordinance, which requires 4 affirmative votes to pass, which is why there were 2 straws available to vote on.
So it would have to be unanimous regardless of the number of us up here. Okay, thank you. Okay, just wanted to kind of frame
in terms of just providing feedback, it obviously doesn't have to be unanimous on this item.
For this, yeah. Okay, I don't think I have questions. Excellent report, presentation, visuals. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, proceed with the second half.
Great. So we'll move on to part 2 here, which is our consideration of implementation options. So I'm going to go over these 4 options, but I just wanted to recap at the end. We are going to provide a different way of kind of considering these based on kind of where we might want to prioritize. And we'll walk you through how these options might align with council priorities of things that you might want to protect, or how we might want to go about effectuating SB 79. So the first option is really directing staff to initiate a TOD plan, alternative plan immediately. We'll walk through some of the highlights, pros and cons of that. Second is deferring consideration, which is really what's being recommended by staff. Understanding there is some legislative uncertainty at this time. Third is really looking at targeted rezoning as an alternative, or it may possibly even in addition to the development of a TOD alternative plan. I'll walk you through what that means. Then lastly, really just allowing SB 79 to take effect without further action. So the first option is really initiating that TOD plan immediately. It really provides us the opportunity to start the process prior to the effective date of the law on July 1st. It represents our most proactive approach. It minimizes delay in us getting those protective measures like mobile home parks and otherwise as soon as possible. It would provide the greatest near-term control over impacts presented by SB 79. However, it may require rework due to legislative changes if they've already addressed mobile home parks and we didn't need to do that. There is also some other mapping which is ongoing right now through our MTC ABAG, which we might not be able to take into account. So be starting that also be an example of rework we might need to do. And again, with actually the first two options, it would require HCD review and consultant support to achieve. The second option is really deferring consideration. This does not mean that we're not going to pick it up. It just means we're just being a little bit more tactful as for when we would do it. It is the staff recommended option. Our intention would be to start following publication of the station area maps in consideration of legislative updates, such as those to mobile home parks. It would follow adoption of the annual budget, which would allow the council to consider the development of a TOD alternative plan in relation to other funding priorities. To consider where this falls in all of the other things which you have to fund and maybe consider and contemplate. It does represent a more balanced approach. Again, it's intended to avoid a lot of that rework, which we would otherwise might have. It also accounts for costs among other priorities, and like the option for it, it still would require HCD review and consultant support. Option 3 is evaluating targeted rezonings. This is actually probably the more creative one on the list, which is really something which we could do as an alternative to a TOD alternative plan or in addition to one. What's unique about the bill is it does only apply to, again, the categories are commercial, residential, and mixed use. Campbell has a kind of an unusual circumstance in that we have a number of parcels which are both industrial and commercial in that mixed use designation. So what this would do is we'd seek out those properties that are industrial, meaning matching their existing land use to what they could be designated, and potentially look at targeted rezonings of those parcels to make it so that they're only industrial as opposed to that combining mixed use designation. In so doing, we would help preserve and protect those sites, which we would see possibly at a greater risk of that conversion to being at conversion to housing. As a result, it does help us protect our industrial mixed use sites. It does not require HCD review. It would require limited to no consultant support, and it would be, as a counterpoint, again, it's a little bit more creative. So there is a possibility that this could be seen as potentially counter to the intent of SB 79, and like many other bills, like ADU legislation and other laws that have passed in prior legislative cycles, they could look at doing something retroactively, saying, "Oh well, it was the zoning as it existed on January 1st of 2025." Preventing us from doing these targeted rezonings. Also, just as a point on this, it does require coordination with the property owners because it would be affecting them, so there could be potential opposition there as well. Under option 4, this is us taking no further action. It doesn't mean we're not doing anything. This would be, we would still consider possibly doing pursuing the walk and historic removals as the second item on tonight's agenda. This broadly recognizes there's a low-term or lower near-term risk of redevelopment of many of the parcels that are under consideration here, except for select non-residential parcels. A lot of the densities could also candidly be developed under state density bonus law at a lot of the densities we're talking about. It's just kind of looking at that holistically. It also recognizes that SB 79 guardrails limit the effectiveness of any TOD alternative plan. There's only so far we can go. We can't shift all the densities down. We can only move it so much. And you're having to make up for that density somewhere else anyways. It does also allow you to, I will just add that this, by delaying action on this, by taking option 4, we can consider the TOD pretty much SB 79 in context, more comprehensively as part of the seventh cycle housing element update. That said, as a drawback, it does provide the least control over near-term outcomes. Okay, so as promised, I wanted to provide almost like reframe the conversation under a different context. This is under how you might see these options being presented for what your priorities are. So the first is, which does the council see or the city see are the most important for us to protect? And you'll see the associated options which would help accomplish those outcomes. So if the city saw single-family residential as being the single most important to protect, and doesn't mean that these are mutually exclusive, you'd be possibly considering options 1 and 2. There are options for the downtown or commercial or mixed use industrial, which is uniquely supported by option 3, which is that kind of a targeted rezonings. Just in terms of a secondary question, how urgently should the city respond? This is really kind of weighing how great you perceive the risk to be of this redevelopment potential actually being real versus it being theoretical. If a more immediate solution is desired, you'd be looking at either option 1 or option 3. If you're looking at waiting for SB 79 to be, legislation to be a little bit more settled, you'd be looking at option 2, which is a staff recommended option. Or if you're looking at pushing it further out, you'd be, as part of, say, the next housing element cycle, be option 4. And then which tools does the city want to use to accomplish its aims? Again, you could either pursue that TOD alternative plan, which was mentioned earlier. Options 1 and 2 would achieve that. Or we could be doing targeted changes to general plan and zoning map, which could be both option 3 and at a much later state, option 4. I wanted to stop actually, I'll provide an overview of fiscal impacts, but I do want to stop on the options and kind of gather your feedback. There's no immediate fiscal impact for discussion tonight. Again, this is just largely a discussion item. Options 1 through 3 do, however, range in costs. This has not been done before, so we don't have really great benchmarks from consultants of how much it costs to prepare a TOD alternative plan. However, we did solicit initial estimates, and we're coming at a ballpark estimate about between $100,000 and $300,000, really depending on how far you go with it. And again, there's no cost associated with option 4, which is that the take no further action at this time option. So with that, I'm available for any additional questions on the implementation options, but I could also take us back a couple slides. And maybe what we could do is maybe start with the priorities and see where that might lead us in terms of the options.
Thank you, Stephen. Questions on the second half? Councilmember Scazola?
Thank you. So my questions were revolving around the targeted rezoning aspect. So, I think about businesses that are, tried and true, huge staples, great revenue source for us, like Home Depot or Economy Lumber, but they'd technically be under threat to be potentially out of business, removed, and in place we get dense housing. Am I understanding this correctly? Unless we do some kind of, or take the targeted rezoning.
That's correct. They're at greater threat under SB 79 than they had been under prior legislation like SB 6 or AB 2011.
Okay.
Because the density is higher and the requirements to satisfy are much lower. And yes, those are at the greatest risk. And to preserve those, you'd be looking at doing a TOD alternative plan.
Okay, great. Yeah, I definitely personally want to protect our already established businesses that bring in so much income for us, but that's my only real question at this point. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez, any questions? Stephen, I have a couple on the item 3 on the targeted changes to the general plan, which is option 3. Could you go back to the other screen?
Oh, yes, of course.
Under the number 2 category, it's recommending that would be an immediate action to follow up on. What could it wait? Suppose that the council direction is to go with once SB 79 is settled. Would that be an appropriate time to consider that, or is immediate like meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. You could delay it until following the effective date of SB 79, or once the legislation is a bit more settled as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? So if there are no further questions at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing for individuals who wish to speak on this item. I do have one speaker card from Raul Sigamoni. I hope I pronounced that somewhat close.
Almost.
You have
fine.
2 minutes.
Totally fine.
So I'm Rahul Sagamni. I'm multimodal planning manager at the VTA. I just want to note that VTA has been following SB 79 closely and is very interested in continued dialogue with local jurisdictions about the implementation of SB 79. VTA staff has been participating in countywide meetings on SB 79 implementation, along with staff from City of Campbell and other affected jurisdictions over the past several months. We believe that SB 79 can play an important role in creating more vibrant, complete communities around the rail stations in Campbell, generating transit ridership and reducing vehicle miles traveled. And greenhouse gas emissions would also be reduced. We recognize that implementation of SB 79 is very complex, as there are many nuances to the law, also noted in the staff presentation, especially since we're waiting for guidance from the state and mapping from the region. VTA stands ready to serve as a resource for the City of Campbell to assist with SB 79 implementation and are available for any support to the city staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak?
I thought I turned in a slip, I guess not. Good evening, Honorable Council. So this bill is not completely settled yet, is what I'm hearing. And I would think there should be some things that council should be talking to our legislators about. The one is the industrial park, one is the mobile home. The next item on your agenda is about the walking distance, so I'll save that for then. And I'm concerned about this converting of commercial sites. I think most of you are aware that the small portion of property taxes that cities receive from housing developments does not offset the expenses that a housing development puts on the city, maintaining sidewalks, water, sewer, all of that kind of stuff. So the more we convert commercial properties that are generating tax revenue and that have a higher parcel tax to housing, we're going to be really draining the city systems, our budgets and everything else. When we're looking at multiple thousands of people, what is this going to do to your budget if you get rid of Home Depot and build housing there? That neighborhood is one of our highest sales tax generators. So I would really encourage you guys to reach out to the legislators and get this refined now in the bill. I do not want to see our industrial and commercial land being taken. We do need housing. I'm not anti-housing, but I'm really worried about the fiscal stability of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Is there anyone else in the audience? Alan, please come forward.
Alan Zisser, I'm on the Planning Commission, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I was actually just here to listen to that. I didn't know whether it was going to come from the Planning Commission or not. I have more about questions. I'm actually kind of surprised there's not more questions from you. Maybe you understand this better than I do. The 40,000 units number is mind-boggling. And the implication to me is that because of the radius includes single-family resident neighborhoods, okay? So there's multiple single-family residential neighborhoods that are potentially impacted by the radiuses, including north downtown, south downtown, other areas off of Winchester that are residential, major residential neighborhoods. So my question would be, what pragmatically is the potential for this impacting all the nice single-family home residential? It was on the list that Stephen put up there, that single-family home residential has potential impact. So I would want to understand what that means, as well as the potential impact for downtown. Does this mean there's going to end up being potentially a bunch of 8-story and 9-story buildings in and around downtown? I would want to understand pragmatically what that implies. And the only other question I have is, Stephen didn't have, on the tier 2, from my reading of the bill, it includes the bus route, the major bus routes too. Now, maybe we're not, in our instance, in the past, we've had a major bus routes as part of mass transit in terms of the radiuses. I'm not sure why that's not being considered this time. So I'd be interested in hearing why the bus route, which basically runs mostly along Bascom, I would want to understand that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Anybody else in the audience? And Andrea, do we have anybody online? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing and I'll bring it back to council for discussion. But first, Stephen, could I impose upon you to, in a nutshell, explain the impacts that Mr. Scissor?
Yeah, I heard two topics. One was the impact of single family, just explaining that in greater detail. Candidly, again, you have that radius. It depends on what proximity those single family residences are to the transit stop. But as we had illustrated earlier, you could have a situation where single family areas are designated up to 80 units per acre. Even under the adoption of a TOD alternative plan, we've mentioned those guardrails. So you couldn't say, even in those circumstances, reduce that impact to say less than 40 units per acre, even following the auspices of the law. I will mention conversion on the other side of the equation, though. You have other bills like SB 450 and SB 1123, which have already raised what's possible on the low end, which is kind of getting you, I don't want to say all the way there, but getting you much closer. I'd say the impacts are generally less than maybe are presented by saying that's 80 up to 80 units an acre, which is technically possible. On the downtown, I did mention previously, I mean, we're looking at possibly an increase of 2 stories in terms of height and an additional density from going from, say, it varies, but say 33 units per the gross acre up to, I believe it was 100 in those areas which are designated blue on the map. So that would be an increase in density, which would be a possibility in the downtown. The third comment, which I am recalling now, was about the bus stops and why the bus lanes were not added. The bill has very particular ways of defining and describing which transit-oriented stops qualify. I believe the bus stops in particular required a dedicated bus lane, which excluded those rapid transit lines, those more rapid lines in Campbell, which are otherwise defined under other bills as major transit stops, like AB 2097 defines. They are not included for purposes of SB 79, but they are certainly included under other bills.
Perfect, thank you. That provides some clarity. So I'll bring it back to council. Oh, Stephen, would you also bring back that priority so we can focus our direction, hopefully using that? Councilmember Lopez?
Thank you. I'll wait for that slide because I was going to have the same request. Thank you. And again, great job to staff on the presentation, the way it's being laid out, the way we're being asked for our feedback. Really helpful, and I think we are far ahead of many other cities in considering the significant impacts and being able to take in input in a thoughtful manner. So I just want to start by saying that in the past year, when this was debated before the state legislature, on an individual basis, and making it clear that I was not representing the city on any behalf, but I was highly engaged on this with the bill authors because from my perspective, I thought that as more of these changes are coming down, we have more of an opportunity to weigh in and be at the table if we engage in these discussions, rather than either try and do nothing or to say we're going to categorically oppose. Neither of those has been the attitude in my time here at the city of Campbell, and so I appreciate the work of staff, and that's going to really provide the context for my comments, which is that I think by thoughtfully and strategically engaging on the pieces where we can have the most impact, where we can take in and prioritize in the way that that matters most to our community. And I'll go there in a second. I'm really interested also in hearing how my colleagues feel about prioritizing this, but that is the way that we're going to best be able to shape what change looks like in the future. But I don't think that doing nothing is an option. I don't think that's going to best represent us. And as Stephen said, there's no free lunch with this legislation. I think we really have to make considered trade-offs, and that's going to mean that we can't say, well, we want to protect all of these. We really have to prioritize because that just means that you're going to make unrealistic trade-offs in other places. I also want to start with the point that Stephen just made and really emphasize that, which is that much on paper, it may sound like a dramatic change, but if you really look at the impact of prior state legislation and what that does to our heights, effectively, and we've heard this a number of times. I'm not sure it's generally understood by the broader public, but that our our ability to say we have height limits and for that to really have effect at the local level is really very limited. And really, if developer stacks these density bonuses the right way, they can already exceed what we have on paper as our height limits. So I'm not sure that it is that dramatic of a change. And so the fact that you have had these opportunities available to developers, but that we don't all of a sudden see 8-story buildings all around town, I think should give us some pause if we think that overnight this is going to completely transform the character of our town. The reality of market conditions and just what is feasible is just that if that were the case, we would have already, in my opinion, seen that happening. But I think it does give us an opportunity to be thoughtful about where are the trade-offs that we want to make. I also, and I only do this because, Susan, I consider you a dear friend, I would respectfully disagree with one of the points that you made, and just again, because I think this provides the context for what we're thinking. I think for a long time, frankly, for most of the history of Campbell, it was true that there was a trade-off between jobs and housing. This was where the jobs housing imbalance came from, in that commercial sales tax was where we really made up the bulk of our city budgets. And property tax would come in lower. Around the time when I came on council, I saw that starting to shift in the other direction. And I think we've really definitively seen that flip, where most cities, and certainly true for the city of Campbell, get more of our tax base from property taxes. And so if you think of it like a business, which is not the terms on which I make my decisions, but if you think of what's quote unquote most profitable, it really is residential at this point and not sales tax. So I just want to say that to provide context, and I think we can disagree and room for that. But just in terms of balancing our budget, that is actually not my main consideration here. If it were, I would say, build all the housing, because of the numbers show that's going to, I think, provide a stronger budget. That said, that's not the basis on which I'm prioritizing among these options. And so just to cut to the chase of what you presented here, I am concerned about preserving our commercial, especially in downtown areas. So, we can't do all these. We can't say we're going to completely shift around to protect all these. But I think if we have to prioritize, when I think of what adds the character and what is unique and special about Campbell, it really is a lot of our mom and pop businesses, especially along this corridor. So I do want to try to prioritize as much as possible, especially the commercial, the long time businesses that we've had. The individual businesses can shift over time. I'm not saying they're going to stay in place, but it adds greatly to the character, the diversity, the amenities that people access when they're living here, when they move here. They want to go to our commercial. So it would greatly, in my view, harm and impact the character of our town if we were to lose many of those options. To a lesser, and so I think if we're prioritizing on the commercial, I would say start with the downtown. And I say to a lesser extent, the mixed use industrial, it is something that I've consistently been an advocate for. In terms of preserving our mixed use industrial, we all know that not only are those key tax bases for Campbell, but we really have some of the only remaining mixed use industrial that provide more affordable options for such an incredible diversity of businesses. It's a little bit less front facing in many cases in terms of what our community sees on just a day-to-day basis. But I think it's another really essential part of what makes Campbell unique, is to have those businesses, and we know that people come in from out of the areas. So I would say for question number one, I would start with commercial and secondarily mixed use industrial. With number two, I really would I defer to the recommendation of staff that I think it does behoove us to wait a little. As I said, I do think, and as one of my colleagues was saying, we should try to be active. And I would say not just saying that we're going to protect mobile homes and maybe some of these other properties, but I would encourage our legislators to do so on an urgency basis so that we have that assurance sooner rather than later if it seems like that's going to be settled. And so that I think is something that can work through our legislative committee and other places. But I think being active in this legislative cycle is key. And in terms of number 3, I would say I would begin with the TOD alternative plan, maybe a kind of reduced option, not a maximalist version where we say we're trying to preserve all these, but reduced option where we really prioritize the commercial that we think is most impactful, contributes most to the character of our town. And then I would say secondarily, and again, not from a maximalist perspective, but in very targeted areas, especially around the mixed use industrial, perhaps looking at rezoning. It may be more uncertain, but I think given the unique nature of our town, that could be really worthwhile, and I think would be in keeping with our values and what we've established. So, again, just reiterating my support for doing all we can to protect our mobile home parks, which are some of our best naturally affordable areas. And once they go away, we're not going to get more mobile home parks. So doing all we can there. But I really think by engaging, being thoughtful, we can look at it as an opportunity. So those are the areas in which I would prioritize. But it's an immense amount of work. Thank you, staff, for really engaging, being active on this proactively. Many other cities I know are still in the process of beginning to pull some of this together. So it's an immense amount of work, and thank you for all you're doing.
Councilmember Scazola.
Thank you. I respectfully disagree with your claims that the income from property taxes is going to compensate or eclipse the amount of sales tax. We've just been shown a couple years back, as you remember, from our economic development team, that sales tax is by far our greatest source of income, especially now that the people of Campbell passed Measure K will be receiving a windfall, hopefully, knock on wood, eventually. And if we start eliminating, these businesses, and there are many within this zone that can be eliminated, not that they will. Of course, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. But if they are, and we put these very dense houses in there, up to 40,000, I think it was. I mean, I don't even know if that's gonna make up for it, but nobody wants that many units in the same spot. That's just my opinion. So I would very much like to go with staff recommendations, but I would also, I think it's key that we do the targeted rezoning, and of course with the property, with the property owners, it's ultimately up to them. But I think we can start having these conversations. I think it's very valuable, and I certainly do not want to eliminate our businesses. And that's part of what keeps us a real city. If we're just houses, then suddenly we're a suburb. I don't want Campbell to be a suburb. I want us to stay the perfect town where you have everything here that you need, including the Home Depot, including, Economy Lumber, including all these amazing businesses that we have here that are within this zone. So I would aggressively be targeting rezoning. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I just want to note in terms of the staff actions, that's the exact same thing that I just said. So just wanted to make.
Oh, really? Okay. New different.
Okay. So answering question 1 for me, the mixed use industrial would be a priority, as well as the single family residential. I just think that we have to do what we can to preserve our city, our neighborhoods, we heard earlier this evening about the development that's happening in the San Tomas area, and how, one house is going to become 10 houses on a lot. So I think the single family residential is important to preserve and balance with our other priorities. I would again concur with the staff recommendation that we should wait until SB 79 legislation is more settled. I don't think that we should be getting out ahead of it. We've seen time and time again where the state has changed or a bill has been amended, and we're in a position now where we're trying to catch up with everything that's been legislated, and you think you get to a reasonable point, and then another law gets changed or added, and we're back to square one. And I definitely would support the targeted changes to the general plan and zoning map under option 3. And I don't know that it needs to be done immediately, but I think it would be suggested to be done in conjunction with option 2 when the legislation is settled. And I do agree that we need to protect the mobile home park, that we have mobile home parks, and whatever we can do as a council and speaking to our legislators to possibly get that bill amended would be beneficial to Campbell. So that concludes my comments. I don't know if that's enough direction for Rob and Stephen. Does council have any further comments or?
I have one comment, and again, any of this is, just wanting to make it part of the public record, just speaking on an individual basis, but at this public meeting. But I did just get a message from Senator Wiener that he's committed to supporting the mobile home cleanup. So how's that for fast action?
I just
Well, maybe we should all be on the hotline to him.
There's a couple other requests we have on 79. Councilmember Sergio, Senator Wiener. Just reading back, I had asked Stephen to not put the mobile home selection on the screen, knowing that was probably better as state legislative fix, just to clarify that. Just reading back, I heard clear consensus for the council on option 2 to wait till things are settled. I heard priority feedback from council on commercial, mixed use industrial, and some feedback on single family, and both to pursue the TOD alternative plan and the general plan zoning, which could be done in tandem. So I just want to make sure you're hearing from us the feedback to go forward based on council direction. In terms of general timing, I'd say, I'm trying to remember on state legislative cycles, we're probably looking at somewhere between August and October to see how things are settled. So just to set timing expectations. HCD guidance should be out sometime in July, and then we'd probably see where the state is with amendments in that time frame, and we'll come back. And that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you again for your great presentation. Indulge for a moment. We're going to bring our Councilmember Hines back into the meeting. Welcome back, Councilmember Hines. Thank you. So this brings us to 8.2 on that council agenda. Let me introduce the item, public hearing to consider the adoption of an interim ordinance identifying specific sites for exclusion from Senate Bill 79, applicability, amending section 21.02.020E, conflicting requirements of the Campbell Municipal Code to clarify the applicability of state and federal preemptions to the zoning code, including as related to the implementation of Senate Bill 79, amending the zoning map to add a reference to historic structures of merit, and authorizing submittal to the California Department of Housing and Community Development for statutory review. And our presenter is Stephen Rose, Senior Planner. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you and good evening again. So by and large, I won't do too much recap on the last item, but again, SB 79 will go into effect on July 1st, 2026, and does significantly expand what's possible for housing capacity around those half-mile transit stops. It does allow, however, the city to, in addition to the prior considerations with the TOD alternative plan, there's another tool that the law provides, which is allowing the city to exclude certain sites, provided that they meet certain site exclusion criteria and they are adopted by ordinance. You satisfy specific findings, and that all of this is submitted to HCD well in advance of the July 1st effective date of the law. The two relevant categories for Campbell include walking path exclusions. These are sites where it lacks a pedestrian walking path of less than 1 mile from a qualifying TOD stop or pedestrian access point, which must be supported by substantial evidence in the record. And the second is historic register exclusions. These are sites that are in the city were previously designated as historic resources on a local register as of January 1st, 2025. So just kind of walk us through the two exclusion categories which are relevant to Campbell. The first is the walking path exclusions. Again, these are sites there is no walking path of less than 1 mile between the site and the pedestrian access point. Unfortunately, the law doesn't provide a clear definition of what constitutes a pedestrian access point. This is one of those areas which is subject to legislative uncertainty. There's an intention for MPC ABAG to provide official mapping of what constitutes these radiuses, these points. But until such time, staff has identified really effectively a two-step process to go about our own mapping process, understanding the law is going to go into effect on July 1st. First, what we went through is an exercise of mapping each pedestrian access point at every transit stop. This would be, say, the width of a staircase, the width of an elevator. There's like actual access gates at the downtown station. And then what we did was we measured those walking distance using manual path tracing, as well as public walking directions, like those which are like Google Maps. This should effectively demonstrate that some of these sites in the city are more than a 1 mile walk distance. And we came up with a list of sites which were eligible for removal based on that. In addition, the historic register exclusions were a lot more straightforward. Again, it's those sites which were on our local historic register as of January 1st, 2025. Interestingly, just based on the crop circles alone, this half-mile radiuses, 123 out of our 143 sites are included, which makes sense because they're around the major transit hubs of the city. But to avoid having to revisit it for any reason, because the exact radiuses are somewhat unknown, it's staff's approach to just include all sites in the exclusion list. And these would remain in effect until 1 year following the effective date of the 7th cycle housing law. So in addition to the site removals based on walk distance and historic designation, there are before you a zoning code and map amendment. The zoning code amendment just broadly acknowledges preemptions by state and federal law or appropriate, like as is in the case of SB 79. It also provides authorization for the director to issue interpretations to effectively identify where there's a conflict in state law and our local code, and describing how they will be addressed until such time the code is amended. It also provides an opportunity for us to maintain a list of properties affected by applicable state or federal law, including as related to SB 79. So SB 79 specifically is trying to provide greater transparency in the process. If somebody were to come forward and say, hey, can I apply for SB 79 on my site? It makes it much easier for us as staff to communicate to a member of the public. You are or are not included as an eligible site. So that's really what that does. In addition, there would be a zoning map amendment. This wouldn't actually be changing the colors on the map. This would just be adding a footnote. And the intent of there is just to indicate really effectively historic sites or structures of merit as they're defined to be eligible for exclusion under SB 79, as is required by SB 79. It specifically indicates that if you do exclude these sites, you must indicate such on your zoning map. So this would accomplish that aim. So with that, staff is recommending that the City Council adopt an interim ordinance. It does require a majority vote, which I'll let our city attorney speak to if necessary, as presented in this staff report and item. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Are there questions of Stephen? Councilmember Lopez?
Thanks, Stephen. I know, as you said, it's not clearly defined in legislation, but I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about the walking exclusion and specifically the work that your department has done so far to map that out. Would this be work that would need to be carried out? I know you have an example here. How comprehensively mapped is that? And do you have an idea of the scale of impact that could have?
Yeah, I'll add, we were very exacting in our approach in identifying these mapped locations. So we pulled latitudes and longitudes at each bounding edge of say a door or a gate, and we connected those to create a line. And that line segment is which we buffered off of to be very accurate. We have conferred with MTC and ABAG about our methodology. We've shared with them our data files, pretty much our geospatial file, saying this is how we've approached the exercise. We've gotten feedback from their team that they'd be approaching it in either an identical or nearly identical manner to that which the city had approached the exercise. As far as the walking distance itself and how that's being measured, that's broadly at the discretion of HCD to determine if we've met the substantial evidence standard. In the actual ordinance, you'll see as exhibits, you'll see all of those latitudes and longitudes identified in extensive efforts and mapping that the city had done, staff had done to document our exercise and how we come to those conclusions, how by multiple paths of travel that 1 mile distance could not be reached.
So the sites have already been mapped out.
That's correct. So, and there actually are indicated as part of the item as well. So in the ordinance, we're specifically identifying those sites which qualify for the walk distance exclusions.
Yeah, so I'll reserve my comments, but incredible work. Thank you.
Councilmember Hines?
Yeah, I just, if you can pull up the ordinance again, I saw the historic component of it, but I didn't immediately see the walking component of the ordinance. That's what your intent was to include it.
One second to pull it up from the packet. So this is the ordinance before you. So it is divided into two parts. The first part does provide for the walking path exclusions. It starts off with that overarching map showing with shaded hashes, those sites which would be, which are qualifying for walk distance exclusions. These are broadly those which are on the other side of Highway 17 or just inaccessible. We do go through the specific addresses, both based on our GIS identification number, the address, and the APN number. We walk you through our walk distance maps and again, those other things. And as far as getting to the comment that was previously made, these are on screen. These are all those latitudes and longitudes. So for each station, say Bascom Station, you're identifying 6+, I want to say, the definitive pedestrian access points in the corresponding last.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning the excellent and very, very detailed, but it's just in the wording of the ordinance that you, the slide that you showed, it was one of your slides, the slides of the ordinance showed the historic component of that, and I wasn't sure where the walking component was in the ordinance that you had proposed. It was in yours. Yeah,
was it on the recommendation slide here?
Yeah, right. So I see in there reference, amend the zoning that they had a reference to historic structure of merit. I don't see in there where you're talking about the walking component.
Okay, understood. It's actually this first portion here. So that it's identifying specific sites for exclusion from Senate Bill 79 applicability. So that's conveyed for both the historic sites and the walk distance sites. Later, this is specifically amending the zoning map to provide just that footnote on the map that would not need to be included for the walking distance sites. That's only required for the historic sites. And that's this peculiarity of the bill itself.
Okay.
Why it said historic and not the walking ones, I couldn't tell you.
Do we, with it, the wording in there, does it, I'm unclear how it would include the walking.
So I think the title is a little bit less clear, but the ordinance itself, if you read in the ordinance, has a specific section that's titled walking path exclusions.
Okay.
Section 2.
Okay.
And it's quite detailed in what the actual ordinance itself does.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. That answers my question.
Good
Thank you.
Councilmembers Gazzola, any questions? No. I have one question, Stephen, and it actually refers to the previous item about the action that could be considered retroactive. I forget what part of it could be considered retroactive if we took an action and it might be. Is any of this urgency ordinance, could any of that be considered retroactive and be reversed?
I will offer that there is still legislative uncertainty with this action, which is why we strategically approach this as an urgency ordinance as opposed to trying to do the permanent ordinance.
Okay.
Understanding that we will need to extend it. So we'll be coming back before you in that 45-day time frame. But also, if we were to extend it for, say, 10 months thereafter, we'll hopefully have greater certainty at that point, and we'll need to come back and make this a permanent ordinance.
Okay.
So that will need to still occur, and we're hoping to do that in a time frame that makes sense. But this gets us before HCD in time.
I would just mention the ordinance does going to go to HCD. If HCD has comments, modifications, we'd have to bring those back to council.
And so the urgency ordinance does go to HCD?
That is
okay.
correct.
That's correct.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing, and I don't have any cards for this item, but anyone in the audience is welcome to speak. Susan Landry.
I think my cards are getting lost, you guys.
Oh, they're different, right?
Thank you again, council.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Okay, sorry. Thank you again. Sergio, you reached out to Scott Tweener. Will you please reach out to him again? This whole thing is around a half-mile radius because that's what you're supposed to be able to comfortably walk to get to work is a half mile. But now you have an exclusion. Okay, if you physical barriers are in your way over half mile, like they are over in Campbell Village, oh, but then you get to walk a mile. So if you're at what, 2 feet short of a mile, then you still qualify. The bill needs to say if you aren't within a half-mile walk, because that is what the intent is if you build within a half mile, you can comfortably walk. But now you're saying, okay, but I can walk up to 3 feet less than a mile. That's not a comfortable walk anymore. So please reach out to your quick text person over there and take a look at that. Let's see, what was the last thing here? I brought this up over the years. There's no legal nexus between a light rail station and the housing development. At any time, VTA could discontinue a station, i.e. maybe Hamilton, which doesn't get used. So where is the legal nexus that says a light rail station cannot be removed in any of these? That to me is the biggest thing, is if they start, just like they got rid of our bus routes, what's going to happen if a station closes and you've built 40,000 units or whatever? So please reach out to your friend there.
Is there anyone else in the audience? Please come forward.
Dave Marino, community, lived here for 31 years, grew up in Saratoga. How many people took light rail to get here today? We're laughing. So I'm not pushing back on this committee. I'm pushing back on the state. Several things went to mind. We have light rail that primarily for our residents in Campbell goes to the San Jose Sharks or to a 49er football game. Other than that, I've worked in the Bay Area. I've worked at San Francisco, Cupertino. I have to drive. I cannot get there even if I wanted to take light rail. So I know the government is trying to help us, but they don't know our city. Two, if we're going to put 40,000 homes in this area, I don't have water. I don't have electricity. We don't have parking. So if the government, I'm not a big fan of our current Sacramento, but if they're going to mandate us to do this, are they going to supply Campbell with electricity? Are they going to supply us with water? I took out all my lawns and put in fake lawn. So this all sounds really good from Sacramento. It's not deployable. It doesn't fit our needs. And I don't see Sacramento having 9-story buildings. The other thing is if they're going to mandate us to do this, the people that buy the houses need to have a commute to go to Google or Facebook and live there and work there. Otherwise, we're going to build this stuff just like off a lark, and nobody's going to be in the units. Question, what is affordable housing? My stepson's looking for a house. Is affordable housing 1.5, like across from the Lark car wash? If that's affordable housing, it's not affordable. We need something in the 4, 5, 6 range. And is anyone going to develop that? No, it's not profitable. So I love what you guys are doing, but I think we need to push back on the state and say, this is all great theory, boys, but girls, everybody, but it's not deployable and it doesn't fit our needs.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience?
Pardon me?
I said, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? And anyone online? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion and or a motion. Councilmember Lopez?
Well, I'm happy to start us off. Really, I really do appreciate the public comment and interest on a big issue like this, and I wish we had more folks out. We absolutely need it on a topic like this that concerns the future of Campbell. I just want to start by saying, and I meant to address this in last comments, but Rahul, thank you for being here on behalf of VTA. I think our transit agency is absolutely an essential partner throughout this, and I know we've been in close touch. Let's continue to work together. I know on VTA side that they're ready to help. I'm not concerned that we're going to close the Hamilton light rail. I mean, you will hear that in my comments. I'm focusing more on the light rail stop. And frankly, I think Campbell is unique in that really the line that we're looking at is shaped much more by the light rail than in other cities where I would say it is much more uncertain as to the bus lines. Not that there are plans to take away those bus lines in those other cities, but just by virtue of the hard infrastructure there, you have a little bit less certainty. I feel more confidence in Campbell on the basis of this. That said, the point of this legislation is that the housing should be accessible by transit, which is why I do support this work. And I just want to highlight the incredible work once again of staff. So I know we have an existing historic inventory list, and it's pretty easy there to see which houses fall within the circles. I know we have the access points. But it wasn't totally clear to me before Stephen answered my question that every one of those properties in there is what would be on the exclusion list. So that is an extraordinary amount of work. The fact that you've already followed up with MTC ABAG to say, you know, I know the state hasn't finalized the methodology, but is this in line with the direction that you're going in? That's just outstanding. And I have no doubt that the work that Campbell is doing will be a model for many other cities doing that. So that gives me all the greater confidence in taking a step and supporting this ordinance. Sir, or last public commenter, I'd say respectfully and highly value your comments. My point and where I'm coming from is not to say that you should get on a public transit system. But I do think I want to respectfully push back just a little bit and say that I do think we have to plan for future generations that will be able to make use of this. And I just want to share on a personal basis. I take light rail every day to get to work. I go from the Campbell stop and I get off at Convention Center and I go to work. It's not for everyone. There are many others, you know, including my own peer group, for whom that would not work. But on days when we're not going to work and we're trying to go up to a show, a restaurant with friends around the Bay Area, we're able to take the light rail from Diridon, my partner and I, and go around different parts of the Bay Area. So it's not perfect. It's been a long time coming. It should be better. Work can make it better. And while it won't be a perfect process, I do see this as part of our responsibility to start putting the pieces together as best we can. And I'll just go back to my previous comments. I think we can get there by engaging more and more. You're right. The city can't do it all alone. The state can't just mandate and make it, wave a wand and make it perfectly happen. And our transit agencies can't do it by themselves. So I do think we need the continued engagement and partnership to make sure our community has a voice and is at the table. Absolutely respect the voices, and I'm glad we're hearing them of people who may have differences of opinion, but I think it's all valid to get us to where we need. And I don't think the goal here is to mandate that this is for everyone and that this is how everyone's going to live in the future. But for the people who do want to make that choice, I think it's a positive to start to put ourselves out there as someone where people can make this lifestyle choice and start to move in and access jobs, the amenities that we have in the area. So that's the perspective from which I'm approaching, not that it's going to be a wholesale, you know, everyone's going to suddenly want to ride light rail, but I do see this as an investment in the future. So with that, deeply appreciate the comments and appreciate the work of staff. I will be supporting this ordinance. I think give us more of a voice and right size this for our community.
Councilmember Hines.
So I really appreciate, yeah, you're back, you're blocked there. I very much appreciate the comments. I think that this is going to be one of the watershed points that we as a city and every city is going to have to be able to manage around. We need housing. There's no question about it. And being able to come up with the balanced way to do it, whether or not, you know, it's a half mile or mile walk is understood. But I also want to first commend Stephen and the planning department, just tremendous work on putting this together. Now, is question as far as use of the use of the light rail. On Thursday, I'm actually going to walk to Costa Mesa, the League of Cities Housing Community and Housing Community and Economic Development Committee that I'm on. And so I'm going to be pushing back on, and all of the cities are pushing back from that. And what I do is I walk to the light rail. I'm going to take the light rail to Amtrak, take the Amtrak down to LA, take the surf liner to Costa Mesa Thursday. It's going to be a long day, but I'd like to nap on trains too. So I am going to be I'm going to be doing it. It's an important thing. I enjoy using. The family knows that I like big things that move, and trains, planes, and boats are a big part of that. So coming back, that's just the humorous part, but the serious part is that this is a mandated requirement from the state, and we need to manage to it. We need to be able to make it work within the guidelines that we have that are going to be tight and constrained. If we don't work to make it work, we're going to get a harder anvil thrown at us. So we need to come up with the right approach to it. I believe that this ordinance reflects the carve-outs of the walk and the historical, and I would be in support of that and doing that.
Councilmember Scozola. Thank you. I'll just, excuse me, briefly say that I'm going to support the staff recommendation. I agree that we need housing, but development has to be balanced. We can't just create 40,000 units in the city. And I mean, that's just, to me, an unattainable goal. And it's not going to happen in my lifetime, but I don't think it's going to happen beyond that amount of, I mean, our infrastructure can't handle that unless the state provides the money and the resources in which to build that. And so I look at this as one way that the city can carve out a little bit of protection for our city. And it's one way that we can push back on the state, and hopefully HCD will approve it. And that's all I'll say on that. Any other comments or questions before I ask for a motion?
Yeah, I just to give a little bit more clarity and I'm trying to be transparent on a personal basis. Last year, I really engaged in a lot of conversations about this bill, and this provision was not included in the first draft. And I really brought to the attention of our state legislators that we needed more flexibility for example, historic areas like this, that we need to make sure that we couldn't just draw a circle on a map and pretend that represented real access in the real world. So again, it's not perfect, but I think it's an example of what happens when we engage and try to have a voice at the local level. And just thank you again to staff for doing this work. And I just hope we maintain that attitude of trying to engage as much as we can to represent our community. So with that, I will move this ordinance.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez and a second by Councilmember Hines to approve the staff recommendation. Could we have roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scozola.
Aye.
One sec. Okay. Being an interim ordinance of the City Council of the City of Campbell identifying specific sites for exclusion from Senate Bill 79 applicability, amending section 21.02.02.e, conflicting requirements of the Campbell Municipal Code to clarify the applicability of state and federal preemptions to the zoning code, including as related to the implementation of Senate Bill 79, amending the zoning map to add a reference to historic structures of merit and authorizing submittal to the California Department of Housing and Community Development for statutory review, file number PLN 2025-170.
Can I have a motion?
I motion to not proceed with further reading,
Wait for the reading.
whatever the wording is that I need to say.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Lopez. Aye. Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Vibey.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
And with the mayor's indulgence, I was gonna call for a quick recess, 5-minute recess, if that's okay with.
So we do have a quorum of the council, and I'm going to continue the meeting. Is it still Tuesday? No. I know it was a long discussion. I thank everyone for your patience and for participating in the previous discussions. We now move on to new business, and we have three items of new business. So we'll start with item 9.2, which is the acceptance of fiscal year 2025 annual comprehensive financial report and the auditor's written communication on internal control. Oh, okay. I'm the one that's asleep here. I apologize. So we'll consider that second. So we'll actually go to item 9.1. My apologies. Okay. Sorry, Eloisa. The West Valley Homeless Services Feasibility Study. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Eloisa Murillo Garcia, the housing manager. And the item before you tonight is the West Valley Homeless Services Feasibility Study. Tonight, we'll share updates on the West Valley Homeless Services Feasibility Study. Following the study session on the needs analysis held in August 2025, the project team completed the feasibility study, which is the study that you have before you. We will present key findings of the study and recommendations. Just wanted to let you know a little bit about the project team. So in addition to myself and Rob Eastwood, our community development director, we work with the Good City Company consultant team. And tonight we do have Nick Hamilton, the public policy lead, who was the lead on this on behalf of Good City. The recommended actions before you are to receive the report and to adopt a resolution of intent to support participation in a West Valley Homeless Services implementation task force. And I'll get into that a little bit further as the presentation goes along. So just to give you a quick refresher on the timeline, back in July of 2024, Council allocated $100,000 in American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, to conduct a homeless needs analysis and feasibility study for the West Valley region, which includes, in addition to the city of Campbell, the cities of Cupertino, Saratoga, Montserrano, and the town of Los Gatos. And in December of 2024, the city contracted with Good City Company to complete the study. In spring of 2025, the city of Campbell developed and entered into an MOU with the other West Valley jurisdictions. And this is to recognize that homelessness is a regional challenge and it's best addressed collaboratively. The project consists of two components. Phase one was the needs analysis, which was completed in the summer of 2025. And at that point, City Council held a study session to review the needs analysis findings and to provide feedback. The completed feasibility study builds upon that analysis and evaluates collaborative strategies that the 5 jurisdictions could potentially pursue to more effectively address homelessness across the West Valley. So being that we're in phase 2, we are here before you tonight. The other cities will be going to their councils in April and May, as noted on the screen. So just to let you know, what is the purpose of the feasibility study? So the feasibility study evaluates opportunities for shared services amongst the 5 jurisdictions. It's also an opportunity for strengthened regional partnerships. And it provides for alignment of resources and responses to the specific needs of the unhoused residents in the West Valley. So just going back a little bit, just to give you a quick refresher on the needs analysis that we presented in the summer of 2025. So as you may recall, there was a pit count or point in time count conducted in 2025 as well as in 2023. So the chart here, or the table, shows you the difference between 2023 and 2025, and this is for the whole West Valley region. As you can see, the West Valley region saw an overall 13% increase from 2023 to 2025, while the county overall increased by 8%. The needs analysis, in addition to looking at the pit count data, also looked at county homeless services intake data, which their data revealed 524 individuals in the West Valley across 322 households that were identified as being homeless. There were approximately 200 new assessments done per year. Approximately 90 of those new intakes were done in the city of Campbell. So that's people that are newly unhoused. The needs analysis also identified some of the unique characteristics of the unhoused population in the West Valley. So the analysis found that there are more unhoused youth in the West Valley, as well as more families with children. The population is more likely to sleep in their car or couch surf. There's a higher rate of the unhoused who are recently unhoused, and 51% of the homeless have been homeless for 2 years or more. The study also, or the analysis also found that there's a higher domestic violence survivor rate. However, there's a lower mental, physical health, or alcohol and drug use issues in the West Valley. So now shifting from the needs analysis recap, I'm going to get into the results of the feasibility study. The feasibility study analyzes potential policy and program responses to address homelessness in the West Valley area. The study notes that homelessness is a complex problem, and investing in proven housing and homeless services programs can have considerable positive impact on people experiencing homelessness and the community at large. The feasibility study provides an analysis of several homelessness response programs and includes a series of specific recommendations. There's a lot more detail within the feasibility study, so I'm not going to get into every single detail, but if you'd like to see more detail, that's contained within the study. The feasibility does provide a detailed analysis of several programs, which are categorized into 6 main categories, which are on the screen, which are homelessness prevention, outreach and case management, meeting immediate needs, shelter and parking, interim and transitional housing, and permanent housing. This table, and I don't expect you to read every detail on this table. Like I said, there's a lot more detail contained within the feasibility study itself. But this shows those 6 main categories and then associated programs for each one. So for example, for prevention, there's a number of different programs under that. But what this does show is the study did analyze what we call an impact score. which is a composite of 3 indicators. One being the scale of the current gap, second being the short-term impact, and third, the long-term impact, as well as so looking at impact score and feasibility score. So the feasibility score looked at cost savings as well as cost for the project, the likelihood of obtaining external funding, the level of difficulty to implement the program, and the level of established implementation partnerships. So you can see there's a score assigned for each one of the programs. The study recommends giving attention to those programs that scored both high on impact and high feasibility, so those that are in green. However, there may be other reasons to look at other programs that maybe didn't score as high. And while all the programs that are listed have the ability to be tailored to meet the community needs, thank you. Sorry, my mouth is very dry today. Thanks. Some programs may be tailored to specific groups, such as the specific groups that were identified as making up the composition of the unhoused in the West Valley area. So for example, rapid rehousing programs, which provide short-term rental assistance, could be tailored to prioritize families with children, which is one of the characteristics that was identified by the needs analysis, or increasing the availability of safe parking programs with access to food, showers, and laundry to meet the needs of those who are currently sleeping in their cars. So this is just another way to characterize the information that was on the prior table. So this is a matrix of the different programs. So if you look at the area that's enclosed by the red box, those would be the programs that were found to be like highest feasibility as well as highest impact. So again, the recommendation of the feasibility study is to focus on those that scored both high in feasibility and impact. However, as I mentioned, it is possible to look at other programs that maybe didn't score as high if there's reason to or interest in exploring other options. So this is a quick recap of the study recommendations. The first one, which is to adopt a formal implementation plan. So it's kind of to continue the work that's already been done, so that the study doesn't just, kind of sit on a shelf, but, kind of what's the next step. So that would be to adopt a formal implementation plan. Also to sustain and expand what works already. So just using the tools available to local governments to ensure the continuation of existing services with a proven track record, prioritizing additional investments in programs with high feasibility and impact, which we've talked about. Fourth is cultivating partnerships at all levels. So this is deploying a holistic approach to engage governments, the private sector, individuals, and communities. So just bringing everybody to the table. Also engaging with people who have experienced homeless to get their perspective on what they see as big needs or what programs would be most beneficial. The sixth is to align with the community plan to end homelessness. And this is a county plan. They're currently in the process of updating the plan, but this serves as a roadmap for ending homelessness throughout the county. And we have been collaborating with the county on making sure that we share the results of the feasibility study so that there's alignment between the plans. Also identifying funding, and finally to support neighborhood health, safety, and cleanliness. And this includes addressing quality of life issues for the entire community. So in order to continue the work, staff recommends that the City Council adopt the resolution of intent supporting the participation in the West Valley Homeless Services Implementation Task Force. And the proposed task force composition would include representatives from the 5 jurisdictions, as well as county representatives, other stakeholders and service providers. Their proposed responsibilities could include developing a formal implementation plan and establishing measurable goals, defining their structure, financing, and monitoring progress. So the next step would be to enter into the resolution of intent. In this, it's important to note that this is intended to gauge the initial interest amongst all 5 West Valley jurisdictions to participate in the task force. Following the adoption of the resolution of intent, staff would obtain a scope of services with a consultant to provide technical support to the task force and prepare an MOU outlining the role of the task force and funding needs. Staff would then return to the 5 jurisdictions with the MOU for adoption and subsequently initiate work on the task force. Also, I just wanted to note the adoption of the resolution of intent by itself does not commit each city to adopt a subsequent MOU. And again, the recommended actions tonight are to receive the report and then adopt the resolution of intent. That concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Eloisa, thank you very much for your presentation. I will also add at this time to thank the members of the consultant team for the report and the comprehensive nature of the report. So thank you. Comments by members of the council?
I have, this is a resolution that we're going to vote on, right? So I'll have a couple of comments when we go to voting, but just questions that I have right now. I saw that the cities had schedules with the city council except for Cupertino. Is that right? Did I catch that right?
That is correct. So in the city of Cupertino, they did prepare an off-agenda memo to the council. So that has been provided to the council and they are pending further direction from council. So there is no set council date at this time.
Okay, all right. And then you had a comment about domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
Can you clarify what the comment that you, I couldn't tell if there was more domestic violence or there was more people that were victims.
So amongst the West Valley unhoused population, so we looked at, are there kind of unique characteristics that are different in the West Valley as opposed to the rest of the county.
Mm-hmm.
So what the needs analysis that we did in the summer found that amongst the unhoused in the West Valley, mm-hmm. the incidence of those that were experiencing domestic violence was higher than the rest of the county.
Thank you, and just excellent work that you did on that. And then I've got some other comments when we can go to vote on the.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. First, could you define the difference between rapid rehousing, which scored high on the matrix, versus some of the other, for example, temporary shelters or transitional housing? Just what distinguishes that, and why was that found to be more impactful in this case?
Yeah, so just the definition of rapid rehousing, so that's short-term rental assistance. So typically it's kind of time limited. So a household is given a unit at a reduced rental rate, but it's term limited as opposed to permanent supportive housing. So that's the
But how's that different from either transitional housing or temporary shelters as an example? So not comparing it to permanent solution.
Yeah, so transitional housing, and I may call on Nick on this, but I believe that's even a shorter stay than rapid rehousing. And interim sites, that's more like your shorter term shelter.
Yeah, and what about temporary shelters? How's that different?
So temporary shelter, how is that different than interim?
Than rapid rehousing.
So yeah, so temporary shelter would be more of your shorter term, maybe it's a 30-day stay, so it's more limited.
So rapid rehousing is more or less limited than temporary shelter and transitional housing?
No, so rapid rehousing is typically a longer stay. So I've seen it varies depending on the program, but it could be up to 2 years of assistance. Whereas a temporary shelter, those stays are usually limited, maybe around 30 days. Some of them can go a little bit longer, but they're typically a much shorter stay than rapid rehousing. It provides a little bit more stability for a longer term. Like I said, I've seen it 2 years, sometimes beyond that.
And would rapid rehousing be more like assistance to pay for it, as opposed to the city putting up like quick build shelters, which would fall under interim sites?
Yeah, so rapid rehousing, the way I'm familiar with it is, say through the county office of supportive housing, where when they build new permanent supportive housing units, sometimes they have a set aside for rapid rehousing. So it would be specific to like certain units within a larger project.
Okay. And under this, if the council or the West Valley Cities were to explore this, would it be, I guess, what would that look like? And I'm just focusing on this one because it's one of the highest in the matrix, and just I think just in the conversation, the news, I think we tend to be more familiar with things like interim sites and transitional housing. So just to make sure it's understood, what would that look like for the city or cities, or some kind of effort to support that?
Yeah, so I think it could take on a little bit, some different forms. So like I said, with the county program, they set aside a certain number of units in their new, or they did in their new measuring projects, for example. And those units would be set aside as rapid rehousing units. But I have also seen it as more of a subsidy that's provided to a household that they can use at an apartment that's not designated specifically as a rapid rehousing unit, but they are still provided that subsidy for, say, 2 years. So it could take on different forms.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. And again, I'll reserve my comments, but thank you for that. And just my next question, thank you, Councilmember Hines, for noting just the schedule and the timing for it to come before some of the other councils. How do you envision that structure working if we as a council were to move forward with this, and assuming the other jurisdictions do, whether it's the other 4 or let's say it's 3 of them? would that task force need to be unanimous, for example, in supporting something, or could we, as a city, adopt our own programs? And I'm not advocating for one or the other. I'm just envisioning how the task force would work.
Sorry, so just to make sure I understand your question, so you're saying if not all the cities signed on, so like 3 cities or
Either if they don't sign on, or if they do sign on, but let's say 3 of them really want to go with something, or 2 of them and the others aren't interested, what that structure kind of look like?
Robbie Eastwood, Community Development Director. I think the safe answer is we have to see how many cities sign on. Obviously, 5 cities signing on is a better approach. The premise on the West Valley feasibility study and the premise for this is that 5 cities work together, you share costs, and there's economies of scale. If we go through this iteration and let's just theoretically 3 cities sign up, we would assess. Obviously, the costs would be higher per city, but I think from staff's perspective, there's still economy of scale of cities working together on this. We still probably return to the cities that are willing with an approach and MOU to see if they're willing to go forward. If it comes down to Campbell only, that's a whole different scenario.
And what about the case? Let's say all 5 cities sign on, or it's 4, put that aside for a second, but there's not unanimous consensus on a particular approach. How would we, as a city, protect our interests if we want to do something?
So let me just jump in.
Yeah.
The council always retains discretion on our own programs, regardless of the recommendations of the task force or lack of recommendations. We would still have discretion.
Great. That's helpful, because I assume a task force is more flexible, and I support it conceptually, more flexible than like a JPA, which I wouldn't recommend it at this stage. But that's a little bit more clear cut to me in terms of a decision-making process as opposed to, so helpful. Thank you. Yeah. I'll reserve my comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Other questions? I will ask if there is any public comment. Seeing none, I will close public comments and come back to council. What is your pleasure?
Well, I would like to make a motion if everyone's had our proper discussion questions answered.
I would like to, before we vote on a motion, I'd like to make some comments.
Sure.
If I could. From the aspect of the prioritization that you listed, the bullet points, the point number 7 of funding, I think that's the crux of being able to do it. And I think we need to look really closely at the county for participation in that funding. I've talked with the Santa Clara County Office of Supportive Housing. They've got an outreach program where they can do outreach to hotspots. I think we really want to be able to incorporate that into it. Sadly, and I've talked to a number of city council members from the other cities. We need to be prepared. I definitely would love to be able to do it with all 5, but I think we have a problem that we need to address, and so we got to figure out how to do it. So I really want us to be able to look at funding. But in that, I think we need to be careful about how we present this as a plan, because it is a plan that needs funding. I have heard from our supervisors, county supervisors, that Campbell doesn't need homeless support funding because we have a plan. Well, we don't. Well, we do have a plan, but we need funding to deliver that plan. So I think we want to really make sure we articulate our conversation so that it's really emphasizing being able to get funding from these organizations. And I think you've included some of the Silicon Valley at Home. They've got some real continuity of affordability and tenant protection emphasis that I saw in there. I think that's really good, where we can really focus on state and Santa Clara County procedures that can be utilized for that. So I think we need to come up with a realization that we may be sailing alone on this too. And if that's the case, we have to solve it for Campbell. It'd be great if we could solve it for all of West Valley, but I think we want to make sure that we're thinking about the way to be able to do it if we're alone in that process. But I'll offer it for any other questions.
Thank you. I realize this is a very complex issue. It's a challenging issue for all of California, I assume throughout our country as well. I do see two major areas. One, temporary housing, which we probably have the greatest success for finding vouchers and some things like that. But of course, that is really only temporary, and the biggest challenge and the biggest problem, something that we really should try to solve if we can, is of course the long-term housing. But with long-term housing comes additional support measures in particular that are needed: job skills, healthcare, dental care, just a variety of things. But I think we need to forge ahead as best we can and do what we can. You know, we always hear a lot of comments about people, gee, you have to solve that problem, but oh, maybe over on this part, but not in my part of the town or something, you know. So finding locations is a challenge, and will be. So we'll just have to kind of do our best, I think. But certainly this is a start. And hopefully if we could bring in other cities and work jointly on some of these measures, obviously it'll be better. Yes.
So thank you for the excellent work, and thank you to our consultant team. I know, and because I've been at some of the outreach meetings, I know how extensive the work beyond this, or I should say leading up to this, has been, how much has gone into it. I've gone into this with an open mind to really see what the data shows us. It was the same exact thing when we saw the earlier report in terms of what the initial data showed. And in some cases, it's tested what just my assumptions would be just as a layperson or just walking down the street and encountering some of these things. So one of them being the rates of domestic violence, for example, and really being targeted to that community. The high impact of prevention and really, as I see it, building out the safety net to prevent people falling into homelessness who are on the brink as one of the just greatest bang for your buck that you could get. Coming out of this now, something I didn't necessarily expect is the importance and the impact of food, showers, and laundry. Not something that I would have thought of just with my own experience, but that now that I hear that, of course, that would be impactful to someone falling into these situations, make a huge difference in their lives for relatively much less money than some other interventions. And since this, and since we last had the presentation on this, I heard the numbers in San Jose for their prevention and rental assistance interventions, and just how incredibly cost effective those have been. So the numbers may be slightly different in our case, but it really is some of the greatest, just in terms of every dollar you put in, the amount that you save versus if someone were on the street. So I think where we zeroed in on the quadrant and the matrix makes a lot of sense. I think it is targeted to our community. Councilor Hines, your comments are very well said, and I do hope we can set ourselves up for success by having as much participation as possible, but we should be flexible. I think one thing that would help with that is not to present this as a done deal, but really as something that the task force is going to engage with and come up with something that really makes sense. I think that's going to be much more appealing than saying, hey, this is Campbell's plan and take it or leave it, which I don't think is what we're saying, but I'm just saying in terms of how we present this and the continued engagement, I think will be valuable. You know, and it's a great point about county representatives. I would also add something that I wasn't thinking until I heard my colleagues' comments just now, perhaps also including our state and federal representatives from their staff on the task force, because that can be really crucial sources of funding once they see how substantive this is, I think would be really valuable. And then going broader with institutional stakeholders. So I love community college district representatives because it is an increasing problem of student homelessness. I would also say our water board representatives who are seeing this as an impactful issue, I think would be interested in having local jurisdictions take an active approach because they're limited in what they can do. But they do have large budgets and potentially resources that they can share as part of these efforts because we can make interventions that they may not be able to. So I would say go broad initially with the task force, see what the interest is, and just frankly to see what other sources of funding we can pull in, so that while I'd love the economies of scale with the cities, I think we'll need something beyond just what we can do on our own. But thanks for the work. I do fully support the staff recommendation. I think it's very thoughtful, and I don't have anything to add to it.
Thank you. I will say, with respect to the community college housing, West Valley Mission College District is very much supportive of building housing for students. They have additional property available, I think, and they are looking forward to hopefully doing that. I'm not sure about their funding source, but their first step is agreeing that they need it and they want to build it if they can. So, yeah. Yes.
So from my perspective, in my 7 years on the council, I feel like we have been sailing along on the homeless issue. It's a county-wide problem, and it needs to be addressed, but not one city can solve the problem. It has to be a collaborative, collective effort, and I just don't see that happening in my perspective. And so when the money was allocated for the study, using the ARPA funds, I was very enthused and happy that we were doing an analysis and then following up with the feasibility study with hopefully with our West Valley cities, so that we could come together and really have a meaningful discussion about what we as individual but collective cities can do to put a dent in it, or at least address some of the issues that are mutual to our community. So I think the purpose of the task force is to bring them together and find out if we can share resources, if there are programs or attainable goals that we can produce and really say, gee, we made a difference, or we had an impact in that. And I think it also helps having a collective group, especially in the area of trying to advocate and leverage funding that we may be able to get through the state or the federal. One city alone isn't going to get much, but if you have a collective group, I think that's more meaningful. And I think that to me was the purpose of creating the task force. So I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. And I really do hope that the other four cities in West Valley really come to the table and try and have a meaningful discussion with us, because I do think we need to do something.
If no one else has any more comments or discussion, I'd love to make the motion to adopt the resolution of intent to support participation in West Valley Homeless Services Implementation Task Force.
A second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Scazola, a second by Councilmember Bybee. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Mayor Furtado.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much. We now move to item number 9.2 that I mentioned earlier, the annual comprehensive financial report and the auditor's written communication. And I'd like to ask Assistant Finance Director Nordy Vong to make the staff presentation.
Good evening, Council. Mayor Furtado, Council members, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I will be presenting item number 9.2, the acceptance of the fiscal year 2025 annual comprehensive financial report and the auditor's written communication on internal controls. As you're aware, on an annual basis, the finance department is responsible for preparing financial statements, and per city municipal code, we're required to have an independent auditor review our financial statements to ensure that the internal controls, our processes, and our policies are all adequate and they're effective. Our auditors also ensure that the financial statements are fairly presented and without material misstatements. This year, as with the prior 5 years, we've had Ide Bailey as our auditor, and our partner on the engagement here is Ahmad, who's also here to assist if there are any questions that you might have. At the beginning of the audit, staff provides our auditors the June 30, 2025 figures for all the various funds that we have within the city. And here on this slide, I have the highlights of the general fund figures as of June 30, 2025. Revenues for the general fund, excluding transfers, were $68 million, and that increased $4.9 million year over year. Expenditures, excluding transfers, were $64.5 million, and that increased by $3 million year over year. Revenues overall exceeded expenditures, and the general fund balance increased by $5.4 million to an amount of $26.4 million at fiscal year end. As you're aware, two of the large reserve accounts that we have within general fund is the economic fluctuation reserve as well as the emergency reserve. The economic fluctuation reserve is to be utilized in certain instances, such as the emergency reserve as well. For the economic fluctuation reserve, it's for economic downturn. For the emergency reserve, it's for emergency purposes. In fiscal year 25, we did not utilize either reserve, so both amounts remain unchanged from the prior year, which is $9.5 million for the economic fluctuation reserve and $3.2 million for the emergency reserve. At the conclusion of the audit, the city received an unmodified clean opinion, which is the highest opinion that we can have in terms of there were no findings, no issues determined within the course of the audit. Staff presented to the finance subcommittee the audit process, the financial statements. The finance subcommittee is comprised of Mayor Furtado and Councilmember Lopez, and questions that staff received was in relation to the general fund reserve ratio, which is currently above GFOA best practices. There were questions about the PERS reserve, calculation of our compensated absence balances, as well as OPEB liability. The finance subcommittee was satisfied with the presentation and answers provided by the auditors and staff. And with that, finance subcommittee and staff recommends that the city council accept the fiscal 2025 annual comprehensive financial report and the auditor's written communication on internal controls. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. The statements.
Thank you. Thank you, Nordy. Questions by members of the council?
Oh, sorry.
Just outstanding work again from a finance standpoint. Obviously, I've been through many audits, and having no findings is, you have to go into it assuming you're not going to get any findings, and just outstanding work that there were no findings. So great work on that.
I will ask if there's any members of the public that would like to comment on this. Seeing none, come back to the council. Let me also note, I wanted to thank the auditor for your patience. It turned out to be, this is one of our longest meetings, so you picked, I'm sorry, the long meeting to attend. So thank you, however, for being here. Thanks. What is the pleasure of the council? You have a motion. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I did ask that.
Okay.
There is a
I propose a motion to accept the fiscal year 2025 annual comprehensive financial report and auditor's written communication on internal control.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Hines, second by Councilmember Bybee. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Mayor Furtado.
Aye. Again, thank you very much. We now move to another fiscal matter, item 9.3, which is the fiscal year 2026 mid-year financial update and budget adjustments. And I believe Director Will Fuentes is going to make the report.
Good evening, Council. I'm here to approve. I am here to present to Council the FY 26 FY 26 mid-year fiscal update. It it compares both our income and expenses through the end of December to the budget. Also, the year to date the year to date actual amounts of the prior year. Also, compares against our budget, and also takes some the trends, and also a discussion amongst amongst our executive team and outside consultants to project out our income and expenses through the end of the year and the end of June. The main focus of the main focus of the report is the general fund, but they also show adjustments to the budget of funds outside of the general fund, and those adjustments are called for. I will again remind the council and the public that the current adopted budget for FY 26 does include a 3.7 million of one-time and a short-term corrective actions to ensure that the adopted budget did become balanced. I'll give a few key general fund notes. In our income accounts, they grew at a 3.03% rate over the same time period from the prior year. There were income streams that outperformed, certainly in our property taxes, our licenses and permits, and also our leases and our rentals. There were also areas that outperformed, either due to certain slowdowns in the economy, or also big companies who've left Campbell. So things that underperformed for our housing taxes, our taxes that include TOT and construction tax. Also a certain intergovernmental accounts for either grants or otherwise, and also charges for charges for charges for services as well. In terms of expenses, we showing a slight 0.6% increase over the prior year. So it's overall it's a slow expenditure growth due to and is and access well an unexpected an unexpected amount of an unexpected amount of vacancies, and also the budget corrections that we did put into place up front. There were also unexpected expenses, either in emergency repair expenses, an increase also in our overtime expenses, our legal costs, due to some cases that are currently underway, also in claims. But due to the excess amount that we currently show in our vacancy savings, if we shift a certain amount up to 1.001 million in total, that's also detailed in attachment 3. We're still able to be balanced in the general fund. So I do propose that council approve all of the adjustments in attachment 3 to ensure that in the general fund that they are still balanced in the year. Next slide. So we recommend that council accept the report and also approve the budget adjustment shown. There are also some alternatives as well as shown. And with that, I will take the questions from the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will. Questions by members?
Yeah, can you go back to your, the other, one more, there you go. Right there, that you implemented 3.75 short-term strategies. Your revenues was up three-quarter million, so that leaves 3 million. You've got $1 million coming from the excess savings. That leaves about 2 million. Was that, it sounds like that was the emergency repairs and overtime.
No. The 3.7 million shown is what council approved in June under our under the adopted budget. But in terms of overtime expenses over and above, I would need to check the details of that, but as I recall, they're in the 200 to 300 thousand range, and it's also due to that there are unexpected openings. So if there are open jobs and overtime is a way to still get it done, work done.
Very good, thank you on that. What, you said the excess vacancy savings, is that the jobs, the vacant jobs? Is that what you mean by that?
So under our budget, I assume that in any a year, there will be a certain degree of turnover, either due to people taking jobs elsewhere, due to retirements, and so typically it's assumed that there will be about a 2% turnover rate, and that it's a thing that you aren't able to expect. I mean, you don't know. You don't know when people quit or retire, but it's typically 2%. So whatever rate shown is over and above that.
Very good, thank you. That's all, Mike.
Cool.
There's no other questions. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, come back to the council and be prepared to take a motion.
Any comments? I'll propose a motion to accept the fiscal year 2026 mid-year financial update and budget adjustments.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Hines, second by Councilmember Lopez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Mayor Furtado.
Aye. Will, thank you very much. Thanks
You're
to
welcome.
the
Thank
members
you.
of your department also.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you so
again.
much, Council. I appreciate it, and also they do too.
We now move on to unfinished business, item number 10. And first of all, item number 10.1, the adoption of the fiscal year 2027 council priorities. These are the priorities based on our workshop discussion about council priorities that we had recently. And our city manager, Brian Leventhal, will make the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. That introduction was well done. We met with the council on March 5th to talk about priorities in a study session. And we spent a few hours kind of going through where we've been. Staff provided a look ahead and what they thought was important going forward. And as part of that discussion, the council provided their own thoughts of what was important to them going forward. What I've reflected in the staff report is those comments as best I could, and I've spoken with each of you, and perhaps in some of those areas, I took a little bit more liberty than perhaps was intended by the council members with the wording. So I'm glad to clarify that if necessary. It was a difficult job to take the comments of council members, understand the intent, and sort of reword it as necessary to sort of make this consistent in the format that we're providing it to you here. It wasn't an intent to censor or change the council members' intents. So in the staff report, we list the strategic objectives, the council priorities, and then the comments by council members. The council priorities is being proposed, and it was my understanding that there's still some support for those, include long-term land use planning and housing, city infrastructure, financial stability, sustainability, and community health and safety. Those are the priorities that we're asking the council to consider for adoption this evening. The council member comments are a way to reflect what was important or said by council members, so we don't lose that information. And then after tonight, the hard work is really yet to come, in which I'll work with the staff on not just these council member comments, but everything else that staff had mentioned at the priority setting, plus everything else we have to get done, and develop proposed work plans for the next fiscal year. And when we develop those work plans, we'll come back to the council in May. I think May 5th, we have a study session for the budget in which we will present those draft work plans that hopefully will reflect council member comments, or in some cases it may not. And where it doesn't, we will either explain why we didn't do that. Was it a lack of resource, or was it clear that there wasn't council support for it in some cases? But most of these cases, we haven't gone through and adjudicated each council member comment, and I'm not expecting the council members to do that this evening. We'll certainly take feedback if you want to provide it, but it's our job as staff then to take that and develop a budget from it, develop the work plans and the budget, which is the resources needed to execute those work plans, and propose those to the council. And the council have an opportunity to agree, disagree, add, delete, change those work plans and budget items at that May 5th meeting. So tonight I'll stop there, and I'm certainly willing to take questions or elaborate on my editing of council members' comments if that's appropriate. But really the action we're asking council take is to, by motion, vote to approve the priorities as proposed.
Thank you, Brian, for your report, and for the staff's input when we did have our priority setting, and likewise your effort to try to capture comments that we made during that time as well. First, I'll ask if there's any questions by members of the council.
Thank you, Mayor Furtado. So my understanding is that, yes, we had the meeting and we were heard, and that was the encapsulation of what was heard at that meeting. But I just want to do some brief reminders that there was a request for information. I just want to make sure that we get that before the May 5th meeting, specific information regarding certain things like lobbying policy, the transparency. There was requests for more information on that, as well as the responsible construction ordinance. Those two I know for sure were. So when may we, the question is, when may we actually see or council receive this information? Oh, I believe there's also questions perhaps on rent stabilization. I'm trying to remember that myself, but yeah, so that's my question is, when can we, the requested information during the priority setting session, when do you predict we'll get that from staff?
So let me just clarify for a moment, and I could stand to be corrected by the council. With regard to the responsible construction ordinance, I did hear council express interest in more information. We'll provide an information memo with some basic information of what some of the other cities have done in that area, and we'll provide that before the May 5th date. To be honest, I don't know that I heard a majority of the council interested in more information about lobbying. And it may have been.
Can we re-ask that question?
Well, we can. I'm just clarifying what I understood, and if need to be clarified, we can do that. And I'm not sure it was clear on the rent control either. But I was clear on the responsible construction work, so I just wanted to just clarify those
Very
points.
good. Oh, and I just want to also confirm that when we're talking about the wonderful things that staff is already looking into regarding ICE and what they can do in our city and things of that nature, the No Secret Police Act was struck down in the courts, but we have potential that we can add on something. I believe San Jose has a policy. I believe there was consensus on that one as well, and that we need more information on that one as well. I forgot to mention that earlier. Specific to the, similar to the No Secret Police Act, like the San Jose. San Jose
We
still has
already have an agenda item that'll be coming to the council, the second meeting of April regarding immigration policies that should assume that. So I didn't address
Okay,
that.
good. I appreciate that. Thank you. I believe that's it for now.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that I don't think we should leave the environment and sustainability blank. So I think that there's there's an excellent CAP program that the plan that has been put together. I guess the one suggested work plan is to find some components of that that can be implemented, maybe in concert with MRP 4.0, really focusing on carbon reduction and solar use. So just so that it's not blank, because I don't think that was the intent with our agreement to move ahead with the CAP plan.
So I will say, just because we didn't have specific comments on that doesn't mean it's still not a priority. It doesn't mean that staff still won't have work plans to deal with that. I would just simply reflect in the discussion, but we can reflect the climate action plan. Clearly, we're working on to complete that this fiscal year, and we'll look at low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I just didn't want it to go out to the public with a blank.
there.
Yeah.
I can reflect the climate action plan.
Great, thank you.
Work as part of that.
I might ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak. There is, okay. Okay, I'd like to call Louise Auerhelm.
Good evening, council members. I'm Louise Auerhahn. I'm the Director of Economic and Workforce Policy at Working Partnerships, who are a community organization here in Santa Clara County. And I just wanted to speak to the interest in responsible construction policies. I've spent the past 15 plus years leading workforce and development initiatives for the construction industry here in Santa Clara County. So it's wonderful to see you all taking it up. So I'm here to encourage you to adopt this as one of your priorities to look into this year, and to offer our support and my support in looking at some of those existing policy models in different cities around the county. And also I want to raise, there are a couple of models that address different segments of the construction industry and how they've worked on the ground for workers and for contractors. And this is really a big part of what I do. So I'm always happy to share those resources. And I'll mention, when we started this work some 15 years ago, it was in response to seeing a major challenge in our region's construction sector. At that time, labor market data revealed that our metro region had proportionately more low-income construction workers than any other in the state. Over half of all construction workers in the county were earning less than a livable wage, working, but in poverty. There was really a two-tier industry in construction, Silicon Valley, and that was starting to generate workforce shortages. You know, who wants to invest 5-10 years of your life in something that's not going to pay? And so that's where construction careers policies came in. And fast forward to today, over 20 jurisdictions in the county passed policies for project labor agreements on their public works projects to ensure job quality and worker protections. And public works projects are a great place to start. And I see my time is a little shorter than I thought, so I'll stop here, but happy to share more. And just to say that there's two distinct types of policies, and I think Ruth will talk about the second type. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Ruth Silver-Taub.
Hello.
I'm the supervising attorney of the workers' rights practice at the Alexander Community Law Center, also supervisor attorney of the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement Legal Advice Line. I coordinate a wage theft coalition, and I'm legal service provider co-chair and of the South Bay Coalition to End Human Trafficking, and I sit on the commission. I'm speaking today in favor of the responsible construction ordinance, and I urge you to adopt it as a priority. It's been adopted, as you know, in other cities. Wage theft is rampant in the construction industry, and labor trafficking is also prevalent. The Wage Theft Coalition's 2021 report found 12,376 Santa Clara County construction workers who's been victims of wage theft. The notorious Silvery Towers labor traffic, or as we call it, Slavery Towers labor trafficking case involved construction workers. The ordinance is really critical. It's aimed at private construction. It has no impact on single-family home construction or home improvement. It was enacted to provide an additional tool for construction workers. Right now, once you go to the Labor Commission, which now takes 3 to 4 years, once you go through a hearing, then the judgment is recorded in Superior Court. It has the same force and effect as any other judgment. And only, according to the recent auditor's report, only 12% were ever paid. So it's really, really necessary. And what this does is it requires these judgments to be paid in order for a certificate of occupancy to issue on the project. And it's complaint-based, which is very important. The city doesn't have to do anything at all.
Thank you for your presentation. I had one other card from Susan Landry, but she appears to have left, and there's no one else online. I guess not. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm prepared for council discussion or a motion. Yeah.
So I just want to thank staff for bringing the report back to us, and it's, I think the discussion that we have is pretty well reflected in the comments that have been included in the report. And I just want to state for the record that I did not support the lobbying ordinance or the rent stabilization ordinance. I didn't ask that be moved forward.
Should we have some clarification? Because my understanding was it seemed like the majority was on the side of both of those issues from my understanding from the meeting that we had. I reviewed the transcript and everything. So can we just have some clarity on those two items right now? Ask each member. I am, of course, supportive of both of those things. Yes.
Can I just keep going with my comments? I plan to address that, my comments. I don't recall if there was a specific consensus, but I know that I personally addressed the lobbying policy and my own comments where I was open to it, but I suggested that if we're going to think about it to minimize the impact to staff, was that this be considered when we review the council conduct policy, which we do on an annual basis. So I don't know if that's scheduled to fall before the May 5th date, but that was my suggestion to just make that a little bit easier. I am interested in looking at a responsible wage policy and considering that. I think I will say with any of these, look forward to the staff input and analysis on what the staff time costs, et cetera, timing, schedule, all that will be, which is a part of our process. But I have been interested in looking at, I really appreciate the public commenters and the resources being offered to shape that. I think there's tremendous value to having labor peace on projects and just a level playing field. So I'd be interested in looking at in a thoughtful manner, along with the work, which of course already is substantial, but the work that our planning department is doing to look at our pro-housing policies and seeing if it makes sense. But I think there are models where that can very much be a spur to make it easier, just provide a more level playing field for housing production. I did want to comment that it's not a knock against staff. I've already shared this with Brian. I thought the notes were accurate for the most part. The main thing that I saw missing was that I did feel strongly about the feedback offered by Police Chief Gary Berg about the need to be a little bit proactive with not even necessarily expanding, but just retaining the workforce that we have there in our police department, and feeling that we really need to take a serious look at that, just so that as a relatively small department, we don't lose a huge chunk of our workforce in the coming years. And I think staff understood this, but also wanted to just contextualize my comments for under long-term land use planning and housing, and just be really candid that I think we are significantly understaffed in our community development department to meet the needs of what we've already put on the table, let alone the state mandates for housing and the commitments that we've made. So I really want to make sure that's right size. I think that was understood in the discussion, but just wanted to further emphasize that. Other than that, really supportive of the notes, supportive of the comments that staff made. And Councilor Hines, I shared just the feeling of not wanting it to seem like we don't care about sustainability, but I think the point is well taken that there are staff work plan items associated with that I think we were in support of. Similarly, I had a member of the public ask this, and so just wanted to put it on the record. You didn't see more discussion, or it's not reflected in the notes of as much of the importance of infrastructure, such as our community center, or the pool or city hall. I did just want to again note for the record that we had a study session devoted to those items. I think there was a consensus around them. And so that's probably why in these particular notes that you're seeing, that is not further reflected. But again, because I received that question from the public, doesn't mean that we're not focused on that as a city, was my understanding. So that was really just what I wanted to emphasize, but I look forward to continuing through this process as we do budgeting.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that as I look through the list that you had, I felt that accurately reflected, with the exception of fill in the blank space on the environment and sustainability. You know, on the land use, maybe it's too tactical, but filling the wastelands and the fire department buildings, it's probably more of a work plan description in there, but that's such an eyesore, and it's on the wastelands area. The fire department buildings are highly touted, but we need to be able to maintain those. But beyond that, I think it accurately reflected the points that I made.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, just a couple follow-ups real quick. Regarding rent stabilization, obviously we've had a lot of discussions about housing and different things we can do. We talked about this several times at least. Last year, I'll remind you that we did get the statistics. We got a report that there was a 17% rise in rent over the last 2 years. That was, I believe, late last year when we got that report. So that would be what, 24 and 25, those 2 years. So 17% rise in rent. I asked all the council members if they thought, just a simple yes or no, if that was too much. 3 out of the 4 of you said, yes, that's too much. So to me, that's kind of consensus in a way that we must do something about it. And we are doing a lot of things about it, but I feel that this is a very necessary thing. And also I'd like to allow Councilmember Lopez to answer. Last time you did not answer. Do you think 17% rise in rent is too much?
I'm focused on the discussion on our priorities. I just like,
well, just a yes or no. No. Okay. All right. All right. So I will move on to the lobbying policy. So this is about transparency. People are crying out for transparency. So this is something that we, again, much like the responsible construction ordinance. There's tons of examples all around us that we can pull from. It will not take too much time, and I did feel that there was a general sense, and that's why I'm asking, can I get a yes or no from each of you to see if there is still a majority that I felt there was, that we'd at least get the information. That's all I'm asking for here, is that the lobbying policy, we see other cities in our region that have them already, and we can have a discussion about after we have the information. So simply raise your hand or say yes.
I'm going to reiterate what Councilmember Lopez said, that I'm focused on the priorities that are listed there. And I want to emphasize to the staff, let me finish, please, and emphasize to the staff that that reflects the comments that I made during the priority session.
Well, I have the transcript, and there was at least 2 others that were saying, I would like more information on this to be provided. So is it being provided to us about specifically the lobbying policy? Brian?
Is there information being provided in the lobby?
Before the 5th.
I haven't heard direction from the council to do that.
Okay, well, that's what I'm asking, because during the priority session, it seemed like there was a majority that was asking for at least the information on it to consider. Not that we're going to go for it, but at least you just have the information provided, which would be relatively little staff time because there's so many examples around us. Do we still have at least a couple other people besides myself looking in to have the information provided at least, so to have a discussion about it?
If I could add on to that, I don't really see that there's an issue with lobbying in the city of Campbell, and really that there's a need for a lobbying ordinance. And some of the cities that you referred to that have ordinances are actually charter cities where they're not governed by the general law. And so that's the basis that I'm not supporting it, because I don't believe we have a problem here, and it's up to each individual council member to disclose when they have discussions with developers. And it's, again, if there's a problem, I don't see people bringing it to our attention. So.
Okay, fair enough, but I would say that it's kind of an honor-based thing that we have here. And so if you're a dishonorable person, or it slips your mind, maybe it just slips your mind, but if we just, I've seen it before, that we have to declare, oh yes, I met with that person. And that's it. It's just like, yes, I met, and you don't have to really go into details or anything. So what I'm asking here is, I just want to provide the information. You might change your mind if you see the information.
So are you accusing one of us or any
No,
of us
I'm not,
to be
I'm not
dishonorable
accusing,
people?
I'm not accusing anybody. I'm saying maybe it could be future councils, or maybe there was past members. It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to provide the security. It's nothing personal. It's just I'm trying to provide the security. I think this is very important for future generations, for future councils and our own council, perhaps. Yeah, it's not meant to be pointing at anyone specifically. I don't want that to be interpreted. I just think this is something the public is crying out for, more transparency.
Yeah, make a comment to that, I've spent an inordinate amount of time filling out my, my FPPC documentation very accurately and very completely. And and I've done this, should I have any discussion with anybody that's having a pertinent, I disclose it. So I think Councilmember Scazola, you should look at that information and see that from my perspective, that that handles all of that for being able to convey that.
Well, I appreciate that, and of course we all do that. We are to the law. We do this, but here's the thing: let's not be fools about this. People make secret deals all the time. This is what people are sick of. I mean, I won't go into it. This is not supposed to be a stump speech, but I think it's actually pretty ignorant to just. It's not about this council. Remember, I can't overstate that enough. I'm not accusing anyone or anything like that. I'm just trying to ensure that we have much more teeth, because when it's a simple honor-bound thing, which is more or less we have, besides, yes, we fill out some paperwork or whatever, but what I'm talking about is something more specific, where you have to file a simple paper that says who you met with, what you were talking about, when, where, simple information, very simple for any of us. Just, yes, another form. That's what we sign up for, right? One more form for us whenever we meet with people. That's all I'm asking for, but I want it to have teeth. I want it to have severe consequences, like the stripping of your committees, something like that, if you don't report. if it's found out that you had a meeting with someone and you didn't report it. I want people to be afraid. I want electeds to be afraid here in Campbell of speaking to someone and not letting the public know about it. That's all. That's what I'm asking. It's transparency. That's all I'm asking. And I'm just asking for the information for us to review.
I think members of the council have had a chance to say something if they wanted to. I don't think there's any further comment on the matter. I will say that likewise, I did have a card here from Susan Landry to comment on this item as well, but again, she's not here. Is there anyone else that wishes?
I was trying to just kind of be general about this, but I spoke with Susan and it was a question. It was about why infrastructure and the community center and so on were not part of the priorities. So I was trying to address that in my comments, just for any members of the public who are interested. Yeah, I spoke with her briefly. She said she had that. So I just wanted to provide that. And I'll just say as a closing comment, well, specifically on the lobbying, I'm open to discussion at the appropriate time. It's okay, and I understand everyone's different feelings, but I will say, just as a general comment, where I'm coming from and where I think staff is coming from, where I think we should really focus our efforts for any of these priorities is to see what actually impacts the city of Campbell and is before us, and to focus on that, because there's a number of issues that are of general concern to the nation that don't necessarily make sense for us to specifically take up the limited resources we have. So that's really, and I'm aware that not every one of these priorities may make it ultimately through the process as we go through the budgeting. That's what this process is for input, but that's what it means to prioritize. So that's the approach that I'm taking.
Right now, if there's no further comment, a motion would be in order to adopt the fiscal year 2027 council priorities.
I propose a motion to adopt the 2027 city council priorities as presented by City Manager Brian Leventhal.
I'll second.
Motion by Council Member Hines, second by Council Member Bybee. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scuzola. Mayor Furtado.
Aye. Thank you. We now move on to item number 10.2, the appointment of a vice mayor. I will say that we did have a public comment. Once again, I had a card here from Susan Landry, but she also submitted a written statement, which I believe the council has received at their desk. Since this is an item of business specifically for the council, I will ask if there's any public comment on this matter. Seeing none, then I'll bring it back to the council. Speaking for myself, I would like to see, and I would like to nominate Councilmember Bybee to serve as vice mayor for the remainder of the term.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
May I just make a brief comment?
Of course.
Just to explain my thinking to the public, unlike many other cities, we do have guidelines that we've adopted and discussed a number of times in terms of what the rotation should be. And because we have districts that are numerical, it makes it easy. I think during this time, it's important to have stability and follow our process. And so in my view, the thing that's different is the timing at this time, but I support following the rotation policy as set out.
Okay, I know we were provided with the information on the rotation policy. However, my interpretation is that's not specifically a subject of this matter. I mean, of this. Whether we continue to follow the rotation policy that was adopted by the council before for the selection of mayor and vice mayor on the yearly basis, in my opinion, is not a matter of discussion, even though the information was provided to us. That's my opinion. I don't know. So in any event,
I would just make comments. I think it's logical what you proposed, because it doesn't mess up the continuation. It is what it is. It's an unusual circumstance, but it kind of resets and is terming out. So it makes sense to me. I support it.
thank you.
Well, I want to thank the council for their support and nomination. Assuming that it goes through, I'd be happy to fulfill the duties of the vice mayor this year.
Thank you. If there's no other comment, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Bybee.
Aye.
Councilmember Scazola.
Aye.
Mayor Furtado.
Aye. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Bybee, and we'll move on. So that concludes that item. We now move to item 11.1. It is the last item on the agenda. And this has to do with council member reports. So who would like to say something?
Do we want to move into next meeting, perhaps?
I'm sorry.
I was just merely suggesting maybe we save them for next meeting, council report, since it's pretty late. Unless
I'll go ahead and give my council updates, committee updates that I had. I attended the Korean American Full Moon Festival, which was fantastic. The Campbell Little League had a flyover. The Campbell PD made a flyover. That was pretty cool to see that. And of course, to celebrate Campbell, went to my first Seder at Villa Ragusa. There were over 50 electives there. That was really fantastic. I attended the South Bay Labor Coalition, and there was Zoe Lofgren gave a comment that she had gotten from Pelosi, saying that diversity is our power and unity is our strength. I thought that was a really good comment to be able to continue with. And then I'll do a shout out to John and Teresa of Artworks on Dell Avenue. They do stained glass, and it's really beautiful and impressive what they do. I encourage you that if you see any stained glass, likely they've had a play in it.
Thank you. Councilmember Bybee.
So I wanted to just point out that there was an article in the San Jose Mercury and South Pizarro's column over the weekend about our theater and our partnership with the Campbell Union School District, who are producing and performing Alice in Wonderland at the theater. And the article talks about the theater and the Friends of the Heritage Theater. And part of the mission when the theater was initially developed was to encourage students to be able to perform in the theater. So that's actually happening, and it's a partnership with the school districts. I just wanted to point that out. And the show is this March 26th through the 28th, and I know that there are tickets still available if anyone is interested in seeing Alice in Wonderland by middle school students. And the second item I had is I attended the Cities Association meeting last 2 weeks ago, and there was a study session that they held on the ALPR programs with various cities, and the chief of Los Gatos and the county sheriff presented an information report on it. And no action was taken on it. That's it.
Councilmember Scazola.
Sure. So chaired the VTA PAC, attended SVCE board meeting, attended the South Bay Labor Brunch, and also Celebrate Campbell.
Councilmember Lopez.
Sure. I was also able to stop by Celebrate Campbell. It was fantastic, and congratulations to our Business of the Year Water Tower Kitchen and our other awardees. Also attended along with Mayor Furtado, who welcomed folks, and Councilor Hines. The JCRC Freedom Seder was my first Seder attending, and so you really didn't have a moment to rest. You had a lot of tasks keep you going. Make sure you're paying attention. Yeah, very very specific. So, but a lot of fun. Also had the distinct honor and privilege of attending an event hosted by Caltrain in San Francisco to celebrate both the electrification of Caltrain, but also specifically the naming of a Caltrain vehicle after Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, and hearing remarks from her. Really a special occasion with many of our local representatives in attendance as well. And was also able to attend the Civic Well conference, which focuses on climate change impacts, wildfire risk, transportation. So as I get some of those presentations back, I always like to share those with staff in the appropriate departments. And if anyone's interested in speaking further about some of those topics, always happy to share. Those were my highlights.
Thank you. And I wanted to mention that on Monday of this week, the new CEO for the West Valley Sanitation District, Tim Keyser, the former city manager of Grass Valley, and he also was the manager of their wastewater program and treatment plant, has begun his new job as the CEO of the West Valley Sanitation District. I attended the Campbell Police Foundation annual breakfast at the home church. And it was a very successful event, very well attended, generated some funds for the extra projects that the Police Department Foundation funds. And we had a report by the police chief as well. So that was a good event. And then I also did, of course, attend the Celebrate Campbell Citizen of the Year program. And while that's already been reported on, I wanted to mention that they had during that time a very successful fundraising effort to raise money for the annual toy program. There were a number of very generous people who made nice donations to, set them up for, again, another very successful year. It won't come till next December, but of the toy distribution. And it's been an excellent program for many, many years. Besides toys, they always make sure that they provide each child with a book. So it's a combination of work play, if you will. And our new library that's going to open up is going to have some great programs for kids and a special play area for very young children and toddlers. So with that, we have come to the end of this very long meeting. I thank everyone's patience and attendance for this meeting, and it's my duty to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.